music.
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready? The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Attaboy.
Let me drive. I won't make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind?
That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It is like being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pan, cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when we run so close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this.
And when we get you primed, painted, and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last. There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
I mean, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? I mean, come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. You sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
Yeah, you gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. And racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes, every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it?
what we do. It's passion, love, which is why we are prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own.
Please let me race.
Fine. Then let's race.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 2 of the Grand Prix World Series here on the streets of Adelaide. It is the Retro Racing Managers League, and once again we go racing with the underdogs of Formula 1, those teams and drivers that never won a Grand Prix in their time in the real life world of Formula 1. Here they get a second chance and they can have another go at victory. My name is Topher Smith, alongside me Tom Kent. Tom, welcome to Adelaide.
And welcome to Adelaide to you, Topher, down under. Here we are in the streets of Adelaide, and I cannot wait for this event to start with a lot of these drivers who have never won a Grand Prix before in real life have the chance to excel in this particular series. And on a really grueling circuit like Adelaide that takes its toll on brakes, I think we could be in for a few surprises here, Mr. Smith.
Adelaide is a bit of a circuit breaker. We've seen that many times over the years. And also more recently, we saw that in the 1990 season at Downforce UK is running in the Retro Racing Managers League. Lots of retirements we saw in that race, and ultimately a champion that was decided. Go and check that out if you're interested. But going into this race, Tom, in the Grand Prix World Series, we've had a few driver changes to talk about already. We had the first race of the season in Taupo, the League 2 race being won by the LaRousse of Callum Ilott, and the League 1 race being won by the Arrows of Kamui Kobayashi. But after that race, a few of the team managers thought, you know what, I'm not completely happy with my driver lineup, so they decided to make some changes. And the first one we're going to look at, Tom, is the Pacific team in League 2. Timo Glock being dropped in favour of Roman Grosjean. And in this particular instance, Tom, it wasn't a case of he was unhappy with Glock. Carter McCullman just wants to evaluate all of his drivers within race conditions. He's kept on Danny Kvyat for this particular event, and last time out in Taupo, Kvyat qualified second and was on course for victory before a mechanical issue, and this time again he has qualified second once again. So Carter McCullman keeping the faith in Danny Kvyat, but this time wanting to evaluate Roman Grosjean in a seat, Tom.
Yeah, and we saw John's pace in the pre-season festival at Watkins Glen, and he showed some decent pace actually, did the Frenchman, and now he gets his first Grand Prix World Series race proper in this series. And the reason why Grosjean is competing in this championship is because he was available after he had finished his Formula 1 career, for now at least anyway, so that's why he's eligible to be racing in this championship alongside Danny Kvyat, who's also eligible for the championship. And I'm sure Carter McCullman will have a fantastic season with switching around these drivers and hoping that he'll get promotion by the end of it.
Just a reminder of the eligibility rules for you. You're allowed any driver who has raced in Formula 1 who has not won a Grand Prix. So Romain Grosjean and Danny Kvyat, as you said, Tom, they were racing in Formula 1 in 2020, but now for 2021, neither of them have seats. No current drivers are allowed in the Grand Prix World Series. So Romain Grosjean is now available for Pacific, and he's been given his debut here today. And a couple more changes also in League 2 for us to look at. The first of those coming for the live team. Andrew Sampson taking the strange decision, in my opinion, to drop Martin Brundle. Now, Tom, Brundle finished 4th at the opening race in Taupo, but Andrew Sampson said afterwards he felt as though it was a lucky 4th place and Brundle didn't really have the pace anyway. So he's taken a decision to promote Marino Sato into his place. And Tom, what did you make of that choice?
I was surprised actually that the Brundle had been given the boot by the live team, because I felt that it wasn't really that much about luck, although there was some form of luck alongside, but I wouldn't use that entirely as an excuse for Andrew Sampson to drop him out of the team, because I felt that Brundle did a really good job. But for Marino Sato, a young gun from Japan who's done well in his junior career to get up to F2, I think he's got a good opportunity to do well in this championship. And can he help elevate the live team?
We shall have to wait and see on that one, Tom. And if you guys are wondering what has happened to Martin Brundle, he has been dropped completely by the live team, not just demoted, he's been dropped completely, and he's been immediately picked up by Force India. The moment that Andrew Sampson announced that Martin Brundle was being dropped by the team, Ed Spencer swooped in and grabbed the Brit in place of Al Unser Jr. And Jr. didn't really have the best time in his now one and only outing in Taupo. He qualified 24th that race and did finish the race in 15th, albeit a lap down. Not really on the pace of the rest of the field, so Ed Spencer for Force India taking a decision to drop the American from the lineup and bringing in the point-scoring Martin Brundle for the next race.
So yeah, it's a good switch there, Fred, to give Martin Brundle an opportunity, because I think he's got what it takes. With all respects to Al Unser Jr., he has done I felt he did a reasonable job in given the pace he's shown in the pre-season festival, in the non-championship race in Vancouver, and also getting to the end in Taupo. But I just felt that his pace wasn't quite there, to be honest with you. But you know, one person's game isn't up there another's game, and I think Brundle deserves the opportunity.
Excellent. Right. Let's get this racing underway. A quick look at the comment section. G'day, Dave Goddard commenting there. A little bit of an Australian flavour there. If you'd like to get in touch with us throughout the course of the race, make sure you put some comments inside of our YouTube chats. We do keep an eye on them. If you spot something that maybe we haven't, drop us a comment and we might even read them out on there. So, Tom, should we get this first race underway?
We shall do, Mr. Smith.
Excellent. So, we'll take you through the grid before starting the race. First off, Dario Franchitti taking pole position in the HRT. A brilliant performance from him ahead of Danny Kvyat in second in the Pacific. Second place last time out, Alexander Rossi, third ahead of Alexander Wurz in the Leighton House. Perry McCarthy and Callum Eilert make up row 3 ahead of Suttil and debutants Marino Sato in row 4. Good job there from him in 8th. Marcus Fingelhock ahead of Will Stevens on row 5. Then the second Leighton House of Robert Wickens ahead of Jose Maria Lopez, who won the pre-season festival. Row 7 is made up of Nick Heidfeld and debutant Romain Grosjean at the Pacific team. Sam Bird on row 8 ahead of Vincenzo Sospiri, the Italian there. And Neil Jarney ahead of Alan McNish on row 9. And then row 10 is made up of Scott Speed and Mark Blundell. Row 11, we have the Real of Mike Conway ahead of Taki Inoue. Then Cristiano D'Amata and Alex Zanardi make up row 12, the Brazilian and the Italian. They're setting identical times, but D'Amata doing it first. And then we have Brundle in 25th ahead of Enrique Bernaldi. And Tom, Franchitti on pole, what can he do from there?
Keep his car clean, keep his nose clean, and stay out of trouble. I think that's the key ingredients to a good result here in Australia.
And we are away here in Adelaide. Dario Franchitti gets a fantastic start off the line, and that looks like Perry McCarthy shooting straight up in second place on 5th, and Craig McCarthy having a belter of a start there. And oh, we've got some contact right there at the back. That is Jose Maria Lopez being rear-ended by, I think that was Will Stevens. We're going to get another look at that. We're riding on board with Lopez in the Euro run. And looking at him from back end there, yeah, he's just been punched out of the back by Will Stevens. And it wouldn't surprise me if Will Stevens has a bit of damage on his own on the front end. And oh, we've got more drama here, Tom. D'Amato looks like he's pulling off to the side of the circuit already. We ride on board with the Brazilian in the Fundamental on the replay. And what has happened to him here is there's a carnage up ahead of him with Lopez and Stevens. And oh, Tom, to me, that looks like he's been hit on the back by someone.
Yeah, I think he's got nudged at the back there by one of the rear tail enders. I couldn't quite tell who it was that ran into the back of it. It could have been, was it Tsunade? No, it wasn't. It was Martin Brundle.
Brundle in his first race for Force India, hitting the back of Cristiano D'Amato, and that looks like it might be some gearbox damage to D'Amato being hit up the rear like that. And Brundle also going slow. He looks like he's out of his first race with Force India. And a double retirement already to start. Both those drivers now confirmed as out of the race. And, I mean, I suppose some people would look at that and say the blame might be on Martin Brundle for hitting D'Amato up the rear. But, Tom, it's the first corner of the first lap. I suppose carnage is in some ways inevitable.
Yeah, and considering the width of the Adelaide track, there's not too much room for all these 26 cars to filter through, so it's going to be quite a difficult one for the stewards to decide. And there's contact there with Suspiri with what looks like the real there.
Yeah, Mike Conway and Suspiri, and Conway's going slow through what is normally a flat-out corner there, but Suspiri and Conway coming together and banging wheels. Conway possibly with a bit of damage there. He went really slow getting onto the straight. He's already been caught, and he's being passed by both Suspiri and Inoue there. Here is Dario Franchitti, who has gone off into the lead already ahead of Perry McCarthy. What a start that was from the Coloni, going up from 5th on the grid. He set the fastest lap on the first lap of the race already. But Tom, that's a belter of a start there from Perry McCarthy.
Superb start there for McCarthy, up from 5th to 2nd place. Danny Kvyat remaining inside the top 3 despite dropping a place. Then we've got behind Kvyat is Alex Rossi, who's made up ground. Poor start for Alex Wirtz though, who started 4th and he's down to 6th place.
Not a good start there from the Austrian driving for Leighton House. It is a long race though. We've got 60 laps in total. We've completed one of those. We saw on the graphic there, Jose Maria Lopez has come into the pits to get his rear wing replaced. Not a good start there from Lopez, who was being touted as a pre-season favourite, especially after the pre-season festival, which he won, which made people think maybe Lopez will be a contender for the championship this year. And he went and took pole position in Taupo. He put in a fantastic performance there, but unfortunately he had a retirement there as well. So not getting any points apart from his point for pole position at the Taupo Grand Prix, and here at the Adelaide Grand Prix, he's been hampered in a collision with Will Stevens at the start.
So Lopez already on the back foot, his championship not getting off to the best of starts, with the drivers spinning off into the gravel in Taupo last time out, and already at the back of the field with the rear wing replacement. So he's already got a lot to do in this one, has Jose Maria Lopez.
We've got to spin there for Marcus Winkelhock. It's not going well for Eurobrun here. We've had one of them into the pits already with rear wing damage, and now the other one, Marcus Winkelhock, he'd done a fantastic job qualifying in 9th place, and all of that hard work has now come to naught as the German spins out of the points. All of the other cars going straight past him there. He rights the car to head the right way again. And we're now riding on board with Danny Kvyat, trying to get an overtake on Perry McCarthy, bombing up down the inside, and we cut away to Enrique Benaldi at the back there. But looking at the graphic, Kvyat has made the move into 2nd place stick.
Yeah, it was a textbook manoeuvre from the Russian to get past McCarthy and back up into 2nd place. And now he can go off to the Hispania, that is Dario Franchitti. Alex Rossi maintaining 4th place ahead of Adrian Sutil. And Calamilo, Alex Wirtz, Marino Sato, Will Stevens and Robert Wickens running out the top 10.
And another moment there for Lopez. I think he might have picked up a bit of front wing damage there. So he's just come out of the pits, presumably now on cold tyres. And it looked like he might have, yes, there we can see it there, Tom. He's gone wide through the flat-out right-hander on the back straight, ridden the curbs too much, and has got some front wing damage. And he's going to have to come into the pits again. This is all falling apart for the Eurobrun team, not the start of the season that they wanted. And meanwhile, Dario Franchitti is blasting away up in front. He's got 2.5 seconds over Danny Kvyat now. Kvyat has cleared to the Colonia Perry McCarthy, who now has Alexander Rossi for company. Rossi finished second in the last race behind teammate Callum Eilert, and now running in fourth, actually now into third looking at the graphic. We cut away to a lock-up there for Alan McNish. Rossi now up into third place, and he's looking to add a decent haul of points to his tally from Taupo.
Yep, and it's very much falling into place for Will Knight and the LaRousse team with that 1-2 finish in New Zealand. Can they get as good a result here and in Adelaide and bridge a further gap to the others in the championship? But going back to Europe, I mean, it's all falling apart at the moment with the way their race is panning out, with Lopez well down the order and almost a lap behind.
We're now looking at Zanardi, who has a spin there. The TV director cutting to Zanardi at just the right moment there. Well, maybe the right moment in some ways, but Zanardi has pushed a bit too hard, coming towards the final corner, gets a couple of wheels onto the gravel, and oh, that's not very clever there from Zanardi. It looks like he span up the rear tyres trying to get out of gravel, and it spat him into the Foster's advertising on the inside of the final corner. Here we are on board, and yeah, Tom, to me that looks like he's just lit up the rears trying to get back onto straight, and that is Alex Zanardi crashing out of the Adelaide Grand Prix.
I don't know if he had front wing damage as he went over the curb, hence he tried to get into the pit lane, but realised that the pit entry had already been cut off at that point. Yeah, it's not very clever further from Zanardi, it has to be said. It looks like a very rookie mistake. And here's Adrian Suttil in the Hispania alongside Perry McCarthy. That's two Hispanians into the top four. Perry McCarthy beginning to go backwards.
And Perry McCarthy, he had a lightning start going from 5th to 2nd, and he's now gone back down to 5th again. We're riding on board with Mark Blundell making a move on Neil Jarney there. And now the eagle-eyed of you might have noticed here that the Life is actually running a different livery. Beforehand, the Life was running a nice red livery, which some were likening to the Scarlet Ferrari that we can see in the real-life Formula 1. But Andrew Sampson taking the decision to change his livery, basically, Tom, just to make it easier for us. We've got a few red cars in this championship. The Zach Speeds in League 2, they also run a red livery. And Sampson, the nice chap that he is, he wanted to make it a bit easier for the commentators to distinguish which car was which. So he's gone for a Life livery that is inspired by First Racing from Formula 3000 back in 1989, I believe it was. And we've just had our first proper look at it. We're looking at it here as well. Mark Blundell running in 14th place, having overtaken Neil Jarney. He's now chasing down Scott Speed and Sam Bird, trying to make his way up to the higher positions. Looking at the front again on the graphics, Kvyat is making inroads into Frankitti's lead. He's now 1.5 behind. And Kvyat, I'm expecting to have a good run here. If you cast your mind back to the Vancouver Grand Prix, the non-championship race he started off this season, Kvyat was absolutely dominant back there. He was miles out in front. And then completely unprompted, I'm sure you'll remember, Tom, completely unprompted, he span it into the barrier and out of the race. He will be looking to make up for that here.
For sure, he'll have that on the back of his mind. I would expect him to take it easier on the streets of Adelaide than he did so in Vancouver. And Perry McCarthy nearly losing the place to Callum Eilert whilst you were discussing about Kvyat. I could expect Eilert to get by McCarthy very soon. McCarthy not having the best of laps so far, despite that great start he made. But there's still a long way to go yet in this race. It'll be interesting how pit strategy plays out for the drivers.
So I think the race pace of Colonia is being shown up a bit here. McCarthy, as we said a couple of times already, he had a fantastic start going from 5th to 2nd. Sospiri having a bit of a moment there in the Andrea Moda. But McCarthy had a fantastic start, but now settling into the long runs of this race, he's being overtaken already, and we've just seen on the graphic that Eilert is now through into 5th place. So McCarthy dropping down another position now to 6th, and the next person in line to overtake him is our debutant at the live team, Marino Sato, and there's Winkelhock there, trying to make up some lost time from his spin earlier. Didn't quite catch who that was in front of him. They're quite a long way up the road now. But yeah, Eurobrun not having the best start to this race. Lopez in the pits twice already for damage, while Winkelhock has spun all the way to the back of the field. And Neil Jarney's pulling over there. Neil Jarney in the rear. That looks mechanical, and it is. It's a transmission problem for the Swiss Indian, so the gearbox has packed up, and oh, he's been hit up the back there by Alan McNish. McNish not paying attention to where he was going. He's hit the back of the Real there, and it looks like that's caused some irreparable damage to McNish's Coloni, and he's out of the race as well. What happened there, Tom?
Well, Neil Yarney pulling to the side of the track, pulled to the wrong side, to be honest with you. He should have pulled to the other side, on the left-hand side of the corner, but instead he pulled to the right-hand side past the pit entry. And, yeah, McNish just couldn't see him in time and ran into the back of him. But if I was to point the blame at anyone, it has to be Yarney, because he should have either pulled into the pit lane with the problem, or pulled to the side of the track on the other side when he was going through that particular part of the racetrack. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if the stewards had a look at that, because that looks pretty dangerous, really, from Yarney.
I find it really hard to disagree with you on that one there, Tom. I think the stewards will definitely have a look at that to see if Yarney could have done anything more about avoiding that. McNish a little bit of a pasture there. Maybe you could argue that McNish could have slowed down and got out of the way, but such is the speed of that section of the track. Maybe McNish just simply didn't have enough time to react. We'll have to let the stewards decide on that one. Meanwhile, at the front, Kvyat is now up to within a second of Frank Kitty. And this is turning out to be a fantastic battle here. Kvyat now down to 0.7 behind. And Suspiri, oh, he's having another moment there in the Andrea Moda. He's ridden across the curves, but he's kept his car clean for now anyway. So Suspiri down there in 17th place. There's Mike Conway in the Real, circulating in 18th position. But Suspiri, he's had a few moments already. And I think at this rate, he's going to be lucky just to keep it on the circuit.
Yeah, and Suspiri having a few lockups already, going over the curves as a result of it. And Will Stevens has got past Alex Wirtz for 8th place. And you can see here, that's Roman Grosjean down the inside of the life of Mark Blundell into the hairpin, and that's 14th place for the Frenchman.
So Grosjean making his debut in the Grand Prix World Series here. The speed of the Pacific is there. Carter McCollum's done a good job of making the Pacific a quick car, and Wickens is into the pit lane with a brake problem. Now, I think he's had good timing there. He's got to go onto an alternate strategy now, but if that had happened in the first sector of the lap, he might not have been able to make it back to the pits. But he has made it back to the pits. The team has done a bit of a Control-Alt-Delete on the brake system, if you like. Obviously, it's a bit more complex than that. They sorted out whatever the problem was with the Leighton House's brakes, and Wickens on his way again, but he's now got an uphill struggle ahead of him. Going back to what we were saying about Grosjean, he's making his debut here today, and Carter McCollum has made that Pacific a quick car this season, as is evidenced by Danny Kvyat. And, oh, what's going on there? That's Callum Ilott. Callum Ilott is slowing, and look behind him like we had some damage. So Ilott is pulling over to the side of the circuit. It's a suspension failure, and I thought I might have seen a bit of carbon fibre flying at the back there. It might have been Topher running over the curb there. The life, maybe, as you say, Tom. So Callum Ilott out with a suspension failure, the winner of the Taupo Grand Prix in League 2. That is a real shame for the LaRousse team. They still have Rossi in 3rd place, and Benoldi's been off as well. It's all action here at Adelaide. Benoldi running wide. We're looking at a replay of that now. Rides the curves a bit too much in the Fonmetal and scrapes the barrier. I think he's got away with that one. It doesn't look like he's got any damage anyway. So Benoldi down in 20th. He's able to continue. Meanwhile, Callum Ilott, with a suspension failure, is out of the Adelaide Grand Prix.
So not good news for the Roos. That's the first retirement they've had this season after 2 rounds. They've just got to hope that Alex Rossi gets to the end of this one. You can see there's the life of Marino Sartor, it was, who went over the curb as Ilott was pulling over. Yeah, it's not going well so far for the live team, it has to be said.
I was pretty sure that I saw some carbon fibre throwing up from the curb behind Ilott's car. I wasn't sure exactly which car it was, but now having seen that replay, it was definitely Sato who pulls into the pits, and a run in the points for debutants coming to an end, unluckily for the Japanese driver. And again, just going back to what I was saying about Grosjean, the speed of the Pacific is there, and Grosjean, he started in 14th place for this race. He had a little bit of a scrappy time in qualifying, and didn't get the result that he was expecting. He's now up into 11th place. He's only 1 position outside of the points here, and with the speed of the Pacific that Kvyat is showing, having now got into the lead past Eric Franchitti, we missed that on the cameras, as we were looking at Callum Ilott pulling to the side of the track. But the speed of the Pacific is clearly there, and Tom, I'm thinking that Grosjean may be able to pick up some points on debut here.
I could not agree with you more, Topher. And whilst you say that about the Pacifics, another Pacific has gone into the lead. That is Danny Kvyat, who's got ahead of Dario Franchitti. We didn't see the overtake, but he did the overtake a lap ago, and I begin to think that Kvyat's pace is beginning to show in comparison to Franchitti. Is he going to be on a lighter fuel strategy in comparison to the HRT?
Well, here is Robert Wickens, who's already been into pits for his brake problem. He's now trying to get past, I think that is Marino Sato, who's just been into pits himself. So Sato will be on the colder tyres, while Wickens will now be up to temperature and going as fast as he wants to. And we're now looking at Perry McCarthy with Will Stevens on the back of him. McCarthy's gone up into 5th place again by virtue of Callum Ilott's retirement. But McCarthy with Will Stevens all over the back of him. And Will Stevens was another impressive debutant last time out in Taupo. He actually led for a substantial portion of the race and looked like he might have taken what would have been a sensational Grand Prix victory on debut. But unfortunately, the reliability gods conspired against him, and Stevens did have to pull over with a mechanical issue. Here is Will Stevens looking up the inside of Perry McCarthy. And we've cut away to Mike Conway with a Waterley. Conway out of the race in the Real. That is both of Ed Hunter's cars out already. What a shame there for Ed Hunter and his team. Jarny retiring earlier on in this race, and now Conway pulling to the side of the road with a Waterley. Not a great start to the season for Real, Tom.
It's back to the drawing board for Ed Hunter and his boys. Both cars out of the race after only 11 laps of this one. You can see Grosjean locking up there into the left-hander before the last section of the lap. That won't do the brakes or the tyres any good whatsoever if he continues doing that. But yeah, we're down to I think 19 cars, would you believe? I think we've had 7 retirements so far in this race. We've only done a dozen laps so far in this.
We did say earlier on, Tom, this circuit is a bit of a car breaker. That was evidenced by the 1990 Formula 1 season race we did here a few weeks ago. And it's also evidenced by real life, effectively. Adelaide known as a bit of a car breaker. And once again, we are seeing that come into effect with 7 retirements already within 12 laps. And Danny Kvyat, he's having a mega time up in front. Oh, Sam Bird going for a spin there. Bird was under pressure from the Pacific, and there's another car off there. That's Scott Speed with some sort of mechanical issue there. We'll have to wait to see what that is. Scott Speed out of this race as well, an 8th retirement of the Adelaide Grand Prix. But Sam Bird, who was under pressure from the Pacific of Roman Grosjean, goes for a spin seemingly of his own accord, and Robert Wickens also pulling off it there as well. Or not pulling off, he's maybe gone for a half spin as well and just had to wait for, I think that was Enrique Bernoldi to go through into 15th place. Wickens not having a fantastic time here either. His teammate, Alexander Wurz, is in 7th place, holding up the honour for Leighton House, which is led this season by Chris Cavalier. Oh, there is Wurz! Just as we were talking about him, Alexander Wurz seems to have gone into the wall and ripped off his front left wheel. Oh, what a shame that is. Leighton House not having a great race either here today. Wurz looked set to get some points for them in the second race of the championship. That was almost a commentator's curse there, Tom. Just as we started talking about Alex Wurz, he goes and puts it in the wall.
Yeah, I think what's happened is he's clicked the curb on where the first chicane is, clicked the curb, upset the balance of the car, and he's just gone into the barrier and it's ripped the right, so the left front wheel off the Leighton House. So not good news there for the Leighton House team. Managed by. Just look.
Leighton House is managed by Chris Cavaney, the head of that team. He does still have one driver left in this race in the form of Robert Wickens, who's down in 14th position at the moment. And I think you know as well as I do, Tom, that team should be achieving a bit better. Both Wurz and Wickens are very fast drivers, just not really had the luck so far.
No, and you know, it's a long way to go yet in this championship, but they just need to start finding a bit of form. We saw an overtake there from what looked like the Eurobron, who was just getting through there. Maybe Marcus Vingegaard getting by Taki Inoue into the hairpin. So that's him up into 11th place. I mean, to be fair, Topher, Andrea Moda, who were completely off the pace in Taupo, could be on course for a good haul of points here, given how this race is playing out so far.
Well, currently, Vincenzo Sospiri is in 10th place, only just behind Mark Blundell, and Benoldi having a moment there, trying to hold position from Robert Wickens. Benoldi a little bit erratic in this race so far. And Sospiri in the Andrea Moda in 10th place, while Taki Inoue, a veteran from Season 1 of the Grand Prix World Series, is in 12th place. So maybe we could have a double points finish for the Andrea Moda team. And we still have a long way to go. We're only on lap 16 now. And looking at the YouTube comments here, Dave Goddard is predicting no finishers. Well, we have had quite a few attritional races, not just in the Grand Prix World Series, but in the Retro Racing Managers League on the whole. And no finishes, I think, is a bit of a stretch, but we could maybe finish with less than 10 runners at the end of this if this attrition rate keeps up.
And Alex Rossi's moved up into second place now ahead of Dario Franchitti. So Franchitti falling down to third place. It's just ahead of Adrian Sutil. I wonder if there's going to be a few team orders here today, particularly at HRT, because Frankitti's losing time. And Adrian Sutil, clearly the faster driver of the two.
Well, Sutil was another contender for victory in Taupo and arguably should have won in Taupo had it not been for him having to pull into the pits to go into an alternate strategy due to a mix-up with another driver. He ended up finishing 8th in that race, so he got a few points on the board still, but to a lot of people, he really should have won in Taupo. And Sutil, now on a mission to prove his worth, he started 7th for this race, qualifying as the second of the HRTs. He's now up into 4th place behind his teammate. And you mentioned team orders there, Tom. Do you really think they would enforce them this early in the season?
It's difficult to say. I think it depends on how the race pans out. As you can see, Lopez going over the curb once again. He's already been in the pits twice for damage, and he's gone over the curb there again and nearly breaking his front wing. So clearly he's pushing him too hard there, and that's another trip into the pits for him.
Another moment there for Lopez. It really is not going well for Eurobron and David Young today. We've had Lopez now on his way to a 3rd pit stop for damage. Winkelhock is now in 11th. He's actually done very well to recover that, has Winkelhock. He's gone a bit under the radar since his spin earlier on in this race. He's only one position away from points, albeit over 10 seconds behind Vincenzo Sospiri. Lopez, he's a quick driver, but at the moment he's proving to be a bit clumsy.
Indeed, and we saw Marino Sarto right on the board at the moment. But here's Dario Franchitti clearly under pressure now from Adrian Sutil as Lopez comes into the pits for the 3rd time in this race. I mean, at least he's still in the race, albeit he's going to be a lap down behind the leaders who have yet to pit.
Well, if we do continue to have the attrition rate that we've seen so far in this race, maybe he could still pick up a point. So Lopez, he might be driving a bit of a clumsy race at the moment, but at least he is still circulating. Here is Robert Wickens having a look at Marino Sarto. Doesn't quite have the straight line speed to get fully up alongside the life. And all Sam Bird banging wheels with Enrique Benoldi there. Sam Bird was running higher up in the points earlier on before having a half spin. And in the Zaxby now trying to make up for lost time. And Winkelhock has come into pits from 11th position. We're on lap 18 now, so possibly a scheduled pit stop there for the Eurobron. We haven't seen his fuel strategy yet. Winkelhock is into pit, Sarto's up into 12th, Wickens up into 13th. Here is Alexander Rossi in 2nd position, and Sam Bird now getting the move done on Enrique Benoldi for 14th position. He's been cleared to now chase after Robert Wickens, and Danny Kvyat pits out of the lead.
So Kvyat coming in for what looks like the first of 2 stops, and that doesn't surprise me actually, judging by the pace we've seen from him so far. And Will Stevens has come in for his first.
So Will Stevens coming into pits as well as Danny Kvyat. Alexander Rossi assumes the lead of the Adelaide Grand Prix. Kvyat has come out 2 seconds behind Perry McCarthy in 4th place. So a little bit of clear air to work with, and once he's caught up to the back of McCarthy, he should have tyres that are up to temperature and will be able to pass the Coloni without much issue. So Alexander Rossi leads the head of the field now, and Suspiri having another ride over the curbs there. He's running in 9th place, but he's been a bit clumsy so far in this race. Riding the curbs a bit too much, driving a bit too aggressively, as is showing that his teammate Taki Inoue is out of the Grand Prix. And Inoue, he was running in 13th position. We haven't picked up on the cameras, unfortunately, but that is one Andrea Moda who is now out of this Grand Prix, while the other running up in 9th place.
It's a shame there for the Andrea Moda team. They could have been in the frame for both cars in the points. Now it's just one car that's running for them. Vincenzo Sospiri in 9th place, showing some great pace so far. And I don't know if he's going to be on a 2-stop or on a 1-stop, but if he's on the 1-stop, that could play into his hands later on.
Quite possibly. We'll have to wait and see how the strategies pan out. Adrian Sutil has come into the pits, as has Roman Grosjean. So Sutil dropping down behind Nick Heidfeld and Mark Blundell. Grosjean dropping to 10th at the moment. Here is Sospiri up into 8th place. He's behind Adrian Sutil. Sutil is now on the fresher tyres, so I don't really think Sospiri will have any challenge there on the HRT. We're now looking at Alexander Rossi. We haven't seen what his pit strategy is yet. He's 2.8 seconds ahead of Dario Franchitti, and collectively they're about 10 seconds ahead of Perry McCarthy in 3rd, before we get to 4th place Kvyat, who is still the net race leader. And we're not sure if Alexander Rossi is going to be coming in just yet. Hopefully keep an eye on him. Note we've cut to Will Stevens trying to get past the Spirit there. There is Grosjean running over the curbs a bit heavily, trying to catch up to the back of Will Stevens, and there goes Rossi into the pits from the lead. Dario Franchitti carries on for at least another lap, so Franchitti back into the lead of this Grand Prix. But Kvyat, Tom, still the net leader of this Grand Prix.
Yep, and you could say it's his race to lose. He's got no traffic in front of him, so he's got a good, healthy lead over Perry McCarthy at the moment. It's just how quick can the likes of Kvyat, Rossi and co do. Just see there was a battle there between the Eurobrun and the Fonmetal. That was Marcus Vingholt getting by Enrique Benoldi for 14th place there.
A little bit of a tussle between those two, riding the curves a bit, but it looked like there wasn't any contact between the two, so no harm, no foul there. Marcus Vingholt up into 14th position. Danny Kvyat we're riding on board with now. He's up into 3rd place again, chasing down Perry McCarthy in 2nd. And Kvyat doesn't really need to push too much, and a moment there for Kvyat, Tom, riding across the curves, nearly losing the back end. He'll be relieved to hold on to that one.
I just hope he hasn't picked up too much damage from that, because he went over the curb quite heavily there, did the Pacific driver. And as you can see there, that looks like, I think it was Adrian Sutil or Dario Franchitti. I can't quite tell on the camera. But yeah, it's you don't want to see drivers taken to the curves too heavily, because the curves here at Adelaide do tend to be quite high when you ride them. So, you know, what we've seen so far with Lopez and then from Marino Sato, it wouldn't surprise me if there were more drivers going down that route.
Well, riding on board there. Sorry, Tom. Riding on board there with Danny Kvyat, it looks like there's no problem with his car now. He's back into a rhythm again. So I think just a little bit of a wobble there for the Russian. He might want to calm it down a little bit. He will still remember what happened to him in Vancouver when he was leading the race. He won't want a repeat of that. Nor will Carter McColeman, the team manager of the Pacific team. Here is Kvyat having a look at Perry McCarthy. Kvyat doesn't need to make the overtake here. McCarthy still needs to come in for a pit stop. So Kvyat, the racer in him will want to go for it, that's for certain, but he doesn't need to. He just needs to be sensible and make sure he doesn't get himself into any calamity, because he is currently on course to win this Grand Prix. And now riding on board with Sam Bird in 13th place. He's ridden over the curbs a bit as well. These curbs really affect the cars. They're a bit higher than the normal curbs that we have across other circuits in the world, and it shows by the way that the drivers ride across them. If they get it just slightly wrong, it can unsettle the back of the car, and as we saw what happened with Danny Kvyat and with others, it can really unsettle the back end, and if you can't catch the car in time, that might well be your race over.
Yes, and as Alex Rossi sets a new fastest lap, he's closing in now on Danny Kvyat in front, who's battling with Perry McCarthy. So Alex Rossi coming into his stride now, but he's got the Eurobrun of Jose Maria Lopez in the way, so he'll need to get by him very, very quickly if he can, ideally on the back straight. You can see Robert Wickens riding the curb again. think he got away with it, but he doesn't want to be doing too many of those excursions over the curves and into the gravel there. That won't do Lighthouse any good at all. So he's chasing after Marino Salsa for 11th place. Vincenzo Prix has already come into the pit for his pit stop and he's in 10th place now. As you can see here, there's Alex Rossi down the inside of Perry McCarthy there. Has McCarthy got a problem? Because Kvyat's already got by him as well, and the Eurobron. So has McCarthy got a problem?
To me, that looks a bit more like McCarthy was trying to stay out of the way of Kvyat coming through, was caught out by Alexander Rossi, and Lopez basically said, thank you very much, I'm unlapping myself. So he gets past the Scuderia Colony as well. McCarthy going from 2nd to 4th, and behind a back marker within 1 corner. And Kvyat, he was held up a lot by McCarthy there, as Alexander Rossi's now right behind the Russian. We've got effectively a fight for the lead here, as Rossi's pitted as well. We're still waiting for Dario Franchitti to come in for his pit stop. I'm wondering whether Franchitti might be on a 1-stop here, Tom. And oh, Suspiri's off. Suspiri was looking good for some points. He's backed it into the barrier. I'm not sure if he has any damage. We'll have to wait and see if he can get himself out of the gravel trap. Vincenzo Sospiri, he'd had a few moments, but he was running quite well for the most part, up in what I think was 9th place. He's gone for a spin into the gravel trap at the final corner, and he's trying to work his way out of the gravel trap, and yeah, it looks like he's made it, but he's now down to 15th place outside the points. And meanwhile, Alexander Rossi has made the move, and Dario Franchitti, oh, Franchitti so nearly binning the HRT out of the lead there. And oh, I'm sure he might need a new race suit after this race from that, but he's kept hold of the car beautifully, kept out of the barrier. Oh, Tom, I think already in round 2 we've seen enough of drivers dropping out of the lead. I don't think we need to see another one, do we?
No, we don't. I mean, that must have extended his heart rate after that. That was very, very close to just bin it into the barrier. But yeah, it's a very big shame there for Suspiri, because he was running so well before he went off in the last turn, and now he's down in 15th position. As you can see, Franchitti clearly's lost time with that excursion. Alex Rossi 9 seconds behind him and eating into Franchitti's lead. So it'll be interesting to see what the gap will be by the time Franchitti pits and where he comes back out, because I haven't quite picked up what the pit window is in terms of how much time you lose in the pits. Ideally, Franchitti would want to be out in front of the Heifeld-Stevens-Suthill battle, but I don't think it's looking probable at the moment, depending on when they choose to pit, of course.
Well, what I was going to say about Dario Franchitti before his rather big moment there, I reckon he's on a 1-stop strategy here, because he was slower at the start of the Grand Prix, which would suggest that he had a heavier fuel load. We're already on lap 26 now, and Franchitti hasn't been into the pits yet. So I think the Scotsman might be on a 1-stop strategy here, while Rossi and Kvyat behind him are on 2-stoppers. Rossi, having cleared Kvyat, is now 8.3 seconds behind the race leader, as we look at Sam Birds trying to make his way past Robert Wickens there. Wickens had his own problem earlier. He had a brake issue and had to come into the pits to get that repaired. He's done quite well since then. He's up into 11th place and is only about 2.5 off of provisionally getting a point here. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out for the Canadian. Here is Dario Franchitti again, still not having come in for a pit stop, what we think might be his only pit stop of the race. And this is going to be fascinating as it pans out towards the end of the race, because if Franchitti is going for a 1-stop strategy, Tom, obviously he will spend less time in the pit lane, but when it comes to the end of the race, he will have very warm tyres.
Yes, and it depends how he gets through the back markers. I can imagine he will get through back markers at some point in the race anyway. I think he's only about 10 seconds behind Suspiri, so I think the longer he goes, I think by the time he's caught up to the Benoldi-Suspiri battle, that's when he'll have to duck into the pits to save time being stuck behind them.
We're down to 17 runners left in the Adelaide Grand Prix League 2 race. First of all, we had Martin Brundle and Cristiano D'Amato coming together on the opening corner, both of them retiring on the spot. Then retirements for Zanardi and Neil Jarney. Alan McNish was involved in his own accident. Callum Ilott had a suspension failure. Then we had water leaks for both Mike Conway and Scott Speed, and then Alexander Wirtz binning his Leighton-House into the barriers coming out of the turn 1, 2 and 3 complex. And that leaves us with 17 runners on lap 27. Here is Romain Grosjean in his first Grand Prix World Series race. He's running in 8th place in the Pacific, about half a minute off the race lead at the moment. About 7 seconds behind Will Stevens. He seems to be out on his own at the moment. He's got himself a tiny little gap between Stevens and Blundell. So he's just doing his own thing, making sure he keeps on the track and brings home some points. Here is Danny Kvyat, who was looking like a good shout for a race victory earlier, but having been held up by Perry McCarthy while trying to overtake the Coloni, he's been caught by Alexander Rossi, and Rossi has made his way through. Rossi is really closing in on Dario Franchitti now. The gap is down to 5.6 seconds. Franchitti still needs to come in for a pit stop. We ride on board with a HRT now, and HRT's on for a good haul of points here. They've got Franchitti in the lead, and I think we have to say at this moment, Tom, he is definitely a contender for victory. The one-stop strategy, maybe not the obvious way to go, but Franchitti at the moment making it work. We'll have to see how that pans out when he makes his pit stop and then the others make their second pit stop. And then Suttil in 5th place in the other HRT. He's already picked up some points from finishing in 8th position in Taupo. So HRT looking to get a good haul of points here and propel themselves up the constructor standings. But the likes of Alexander Rossi, Danny Kvyat and co will have something to say about that, Tom.
For sure, and it's going to be a nail-biting finish as to which strategy is the best strategy to use in this League 2 race. And you can see there Perry McCarthy, he's had a good race so far as Perry McCarthy. He's not done too much wrong, but he hasn't quite shown the pace in comparison to the others, as Dario Franchitti finally pits from the lead.
So Franchitti into pit lane for what we believe is his one and only stop. He's pitting on lap 29. So you would think that he's going to fill it up to the end of the race. We'll have to wait and see what the team decides to put into the car. That puts Alexander Rossi into the lead, and Heidfeld's also into the pits for what we believe is another one-stop strategy from the Zach Speed. That team this season being led by Mike Smith, taking on board Nick Heidfeld and Sam Bird. Bird having his own moments earlier on in the race where he had a half spin out of the points. He's now in 12th place behind the Leighton House of Robert Wickens. Both of them have closed up to the back of Marino Sato a bit, not making a massive amount of headway, but they are closing in a bit, so maybe Wickens and Bird could still challenge for some points here. So Dario Franchitti has emerged from the pits in 5th place, 4 seconds behind his teammate Adrian Suttil. So Frankitti's got himself a nice bit of clear air to work with there, while the Zach Speed of Nick Heidfeld is in 10th place after his pit stop. Behind Marino Sato. There, the graphics just updated. He's 1.2 seconds behind the life. So Heidfeld on course for some good points here today. He should be able to advance when the other drivers make their second pit stops, but will he be able to hold that towards the end of the race? We shall have to wait and see. There are all your retirements on screen now. Inouye, Vert, Speed, Conway, Ilott, McNish, Jarni, Zanardi, D'Amata and Brundle all out of the Adelaide Grand Prix League 2 race already.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be at all surprised that there was a fair few more before this race is done. You can see Perry McCarthy. I think he still have Adrian Suttil actually. I think that Suttil's caught up to McCarthy, and Franchitti is already pitted as well. And Franchitti will be on the pace to make up the time from losing in the pits. You can see Sam Bird and Robert Wickens both in the pits for looks like their only stops of the event.
Well, maybe they're only scheduled pit stops, Tom. Wickens has already been through the pits once in this race, having had his brake problem earlier on. So maybe it's now back to the strategy for Robert Wickens, and it would not surprise me if both Wickens and Bird are now fueled up to the end of the race. And we're riding on board with Sospiri. Wickens has come out just in front of the Andrea Moda, so Sospiri has to strike now while he's on the warmer tyres if he wants to get past the Leighton House. But once Wickens is up to speed again with the fresher tyres, he should be able to just roar away from the Andrea Moda. And Nick Heidfeld on fresh tyres, already on the back of Marino Sato in the life. He's looking to make a move down into the hairpin, and a textbook overtake there from Nick Heidfeld. The Zach Speed going up into 9th place, and Perry McCarthy now into pits as well from 3rd place. That has released Suttil and Franchitti to chase after Kvyat. And Tom, I'm just looking at the graphics here. Rossi, we haven't really seen it, as Franchitti has a bit of a ride over the curve there. Rossi's now up to 14.6 ahead of Kvyat. He's shot away since overtaking the Russian.
He's showing some great pace so far, and clearly he's pushing as hard as he can for when he comes in for his last pit stop. And it wouldn't surprise me if he was in the running for the victory. He finished second last time out in Taupo, and on course for a really strong result. That's Benaldi.
So I'm sorry to cut across you. Enrique Benaldi is going to be another retirement in this race, as he has pulled off to the side of the circuit. That, to me, looks like it is a mechanical issue. And yes, it is. We can see on the readout there, transmission problem, which basically means the gearbox is packed in. That is a real shame for that. And Sospiri has gone for another spin at the final corner. Sospiri span there only about 4 or 5 laps ago, and he's gone off again. Sospiri, he's having such an inconsistent race here, Tom. He's been running in the points, and we're talking maybe he could pick up a couple of points here and there. But he's ridden the curves a few times from over aggressive driving, and now he's taken his second spin into a gravel trap.
Yes, and he's throwing away a good chance of a championship point there as Sospiri. As you can see, Grosjean running wide as well. He just gets away with it. Does Grosjean keeps the car on the racetrack, and now he can go after Will Stevens again, but he has lost time with that mistake.
Not really a good thing to do on your debut there for Romain Grosjean. He wants to make a good impression on his employer, Carter McCollum. Grosjean being drafted in to replace Timo Glock for this race. And Timo Glock, just look at my stats here. In Taupo, Glock qualified 13th, and he did retire from the race with an engine problem. But earlier on in that race in Taupo, he was running quite well up towards the points, and he's having a good time with it. But then the engine problem putting him out of contention. So Carter McCollum taking the decision to drop Glock for this race and evaluate Grosjean in a race seat. And Grosjean, he's running well up there in 6th place, but those sorts of mistakes are not really what Carter would want to see.
No, and I think with both cars in the top 6, that's going to be very, very handy for his boys after the disappointment of Taupo. They really need to hit back in form, as do HRT, of course. Suttil in 3rd, Franchitti in 4th.
And Suttil, he's looking to build upon his points finish that he had. Oh, is this a slow Zach speed maybe? We're riding on board with Nick Heidfeld. And yeah, he's pulled off into the gravel trap. That is a real shame for Nick Heidfeld and the Zach Speed team, who now have only one car left running in the form of Sam Bird. And it's another transmission problem. So Tom, we're talking about reliability and overdriving and such. Drivers have very clearly been overdriving in places and pushing the limits, but the cars are also feeling the full brunt of this Adelaide circuit. Yet another gearbox issue for these cars.
Yeah, and there is a lot of gear changes to the lap as well, which could take its toll on the drivers. So that's another driver out of the race. Nick Heidfeld, so we're down to just 14 runners with 28 laps to go.
Yeah, not a good time of it for Zach Speedbird, having his half spin earlier on, dropping out of points contention. If we get many more retirements and Bird stays it to the end, maybe he could pick up some points. But as we predicted at the start of this race, it is becoming a bit more of an attritional outing here. Down to 14 runners left in the League 2 Adelaide Grand Prix. There is Marcus Finkelhock trying to get past Marino Sato. He had to dip back into the slipstream again. That life has got some good grunt in it down the straights. The drivers are getting into the slipstream, coming out of the previous corner, but not quite able to pull alongside the life. They're having to outbrake it at the end of the straight into the hairpin. And Sato putting up a fight against Marcus Finkelhock, but ultimately losing 9th position. And we're now looking at Danny Kvyat, who's 16.5 seconds behind Rossi now. Rossi's doing a fantastic stint here to build up a lead before what should be his final pit stop. Kvyat has got the HRT slightly closing on him, and oh, there goes the other Zach Speed. Within the space of about 2 laps, both Zach Speeds have pulled off. It's a suspension failure for Sam Bird. That might be from riding the curbs a bit too hard. These curbs do bite back if you ride them the wrong way. And yet another retirement there, Tom.
Yep, and that's the end of the day's work for Mike Smith's team. And yeah, it's another reliability issue, and not very good for the Zach Speed team, who are looking very good for points, and now that's gone out of the window. And that promotes Marino Sato into the points in 10th position, which is good news for him and for the live team, who Sato drafted in place of Martin Brundle, and could be on course for a points finish on his debut.
One thing that we did learn from doing Season 1 of the Grand Prix World Series is that reliability is such a big factor in this series. You can put as much pace into the car as you want, but as the old adage goes, in order to finish first you must finish. And a lot of team principles have carried over from Season 1. Oh, Grosjean having a moment there. Grosjean's trying to hold on to it and he's spun it. He's kept it out of the barrier, thankfully. Grosjean going for a spin there, and he's now having to wait for Blundell to go past. He might have to wait for McCarthy as well to go past. Grosjean trying to get it back going the right way again, and he's gone into the barrier trying to right the car. He's facing the wrong way, and he's got cars going past him. He needs to get off the racing line as soon as he can, or that could be absolute disaster. And Winkelhock and Sato have now gone through, and it looks like Grosjean's facing the right way again. We were saying earlier, Tom, Grosjean needs to impress the Pacific team here if he wants that seat full time. That's not really the way to go about it.
No, he's thrown away 6th position there. He's down to 10th place, and he was driving dangerously in the wrong direction, which could have ended in tears. But he's back in the race again in 10th. He can't afford too many mistakes like that if he wants to keep his drive long term.
And a moment there for Marino Sato. We've got another spin in this race. They're really pushing hard, are these drivers. This is a circuit, as we said, that will bite you back if you push too hard. While Perry McCarthy is showing us out of the race. We haven't seen it on the camera. Maybe a replay can pick up if the TV director decides that we can look at that one. We've seen yellow flags there, so it looks like it's in the first sector just after the opening chicanes. And there we go, Perry McCarthy out. There looks like there's not any damage on the car, so I'm guessing that is a reliability issue for the Colonial. And what we were saying just a moment ago, Tom, about this being a league that is about reliability more than anything else, it seems, that was a big factor in Season 1, where we had some teams that had very fast cars, but they weren't necessarily the most reliable cars. And now after round 3 of this championship, we will have a budget window. All of the team managers do earn prize money from this championship. Excuse me. The team managers do earn prize money from this championship, which they can use to upgrade their cars, and they can choose to either upgrade the power or the reliability of their cars. And we have some teams, the likes of LaRousse, Pacific, HRT and so on, now proven to have very fast cars and, dare I say it, so far reasonably reliable. But we have some other teams on the grid who don't really have the most reliable cars. So when it comes to the upgrade window, Tom, might we see some team managers who decide to put all of their eggs into one basket?
It's very difficult to judge it. You know, if you want to win the championship, you've got to take risks at some point. And, you know, when you're losing points with retirements already, that's when I think you need to try and, you know, make the car more reliable and make sure it gets to the end of races. But that's both the Colonies out of the race now. Perry McCarthy joining Alan McNish on the sidelines. So that's another team who won't be scoring points today. As you can see there's the two HRTs looking good for a double points finish.
So as it stands on lap 38 out of 60, Alexander Rossi in the LaRousse, the sole remaining LaRousse, there he is. He has a gap of 17.2 seconds over Danny Kvyat in second place. In one of two Pacifics left, both the Pacifics are still running in this race. Grosjean is there in 8th place. Adrian Sutilla, first of the two HRTs in 3rd and 4th. Frank Kitty, the pole sitter earlier on in this race, running just behind his teammate. To me, it looks like they're just running line astern, just making sure they get to the end of the race. That's a good haul of points for HRT if they finish like that. Will Stevens is there in 5th place in the Modena, the sole remaining Modena after Scott Speed earlier on had a water leak. Mark Blundell, the first out of 2 remaining life drivers in 6th place. The second life is in 9th place, that is Marino Sato. Marcus Winkelhock, first of 2 Eurobruns, that's left in 7th place. The second of those is Jose Maria Lopez in 12th place. Wickens and sole remaining Leighton House is in 10th, and Vincenzo Sospiri in the sole remaining Andrea Moda is in 11th place.
So Alex Rossi coming into the pits now for his second stop of the race. that will allow, I think, a couple of the back markers actually of Suspiria and Lopez that might let them go by and unlock themselves. Then we can actually tell how far they are behind the leader. So I think Kvyat will go into the lead, and Suttil should go into second, and Franchitti into third place.
So to me, that looks like Alexander Rossi. Or there is Rossi. He splits the HRTs. He's come out right in front of Dario Franchitti. And I think LaRussa has actually played that very well. He's got out of in front of one of the HRTs. He's got a bit of a gap to Suttil. There is the gap there visibly. You can see that Rossi has a bit of clear air to get himself up to temperature. And Robert Wickens looks like he made a hash of the hairpin there, but he's still going. They're in 10th place. We're seeing a few more pit stops now. Stevens has also been into pits. I think that showed on the graphic. Blundell is in, Winkelhock is in, and Grosjean is in as well. So we're starting to see the second round of pit stops here as we get to about 20 laps left to go in this Grand Prix. And Rossi has now cleared Dario Franchitti by the looks of it. He's pulling away from the Scotsman. Suttil is up next. He will need to come in for his final pit stop as well at some point. So Spiri pits out of 11th place. I find it a little bit amazing that Spiri's still in this Grand Prix. He's had a lot of adventures so far here in Adelaide, but somehow is still going. I'm amazed he hasn't put it into the barriers yet. Here is Adrian Suttil, who now comes in for his pit stop. Franchitti carries on for what we think will be to the end of the race. Franchitti looked like he was on a one-stop strategy. And Rossi, I think, has played an absolute blinder in getting out in front of him, because if Rossi had have come out behind Franchitti, he would have had to have fought his way through it. Franchitti, as we all know, is a very difficult man to overtake. He fights for every inch of track that he can. But by Rossi coming out ahead of the HRT, once Kvyat comes in for his second and final pit stop, Tough, Rossi will be all clear for a run through to victory here.
Well, you would say that, but Franchitti is not far behind him. He's only 2.3. He's only 2 seconds behind Rossi, actually, Franchitti. Albeit Rossi is on the much fresher rubber, but is the car reliable enough? That's what we've got to know come the end of the race. You can see Rossi's eating into Kvyat's lead at the moment. Kvyat, we expect him to come in for his last pit stop of the race.
And speaking of reliability, Tom, I've actually just had a message come through here from Mike Smith, the head of the Zaxby team. Both of his cars retired basically within 2 laps of each other. We had Heidfeld and Sam Bird both retiring with mechanical issues. And Mike Smith has just messaged me simply saying 100% of money on reliability. So we were talking about who might go for what when it comes to the upgrade window at the end of round 3. And Mike Smith saying already he wants to make the car more reliable. And Tom, who can blame him?
Indeed, and while you say that, Kvyat has pitted and is going out crucially in front of Adrian Suttil's HRT. You can see there Suttil in the background, just behind Kvyat. So Pacific played that very, very well, bringing Kvyat in now. And then you can go after Franchitti and Rossi. And remember, Kvyat is going to be on the fresher tyres than Rossi is.
Well, it'll only be a couple of laps quick, but Rossi, with that absolutely mega middle stint that he put in, he has a gap of 21.3 seconds over Danny Kvyat. So if Kvyat wants to win this race, he needs to close in on the LaRusse by at least a second a lap. And to be honest, Tom, I don't think a couple of laps worth of advantage for the tyres is going to do that for Kvyat. So he's really going to have to put in the effort if he wants to catch up on the LaRusse and win this race. Dario Franchitti is there in second place. He's 4.3 behind Rossi. I don't think he's going to be catching the American anytime soon. Franchitti on the one-stop strategy, so he is going to the end of the race, but his tyres will already be considerably older than those of the LaRusse ahead of him. So I think for Kvyat now, the main thing that he can aim for possibly is second place. Can he make those fresh tyres work on the HRT? We'll have to wait and see how much he closes in. But at the moment, Franchitti's now 5 seconds behind Rossi, and we're going to wait for Kvyat to go through the middle split to see what the gap is to Franchitti there. Beforehand, it was a gap of about 17 seconds. We're running on board with Danny Kvyat now in the Pacific, and there we go. He's now down to 15.9, so he is already closing in on the HRT. Those tyres are up to temperature on the Pacific, and Kvyat, he's after second place.
Keep an eye out on Kvyat's pace, because you can see right in the curves there, pushing very, very hard to catch back up to Franchitti and Rossi, who will both go into the end. You can see the Eurobronze coming into the pits there. That's Jose Maria Lopez, who has had a very, very quiet race after picking out the damage earlier on. He'll be behind Suspiri once he's pitted, but at least he's still in the race and possibly in the frame to snatch a point.
I think Lopez will be hoping that is his final pit stop of the Grand Prix. It looks like that is a scheduled one for his final splash of fuel, but Lopez, he had to pit 3 times in the first half of this race for damages, and Sutil there, Lopez has just come out of the pits, and that's a problem for Lopez. He's only just come out of the pits, and he's going really slowly. It's another transmission problem in this race. So Lopez are coming for what I said would hopefully be his final pit stop. Well, Tom, it is his final pit stop of the race because he's out.
That's so peculiar, just pitting for the what looks like the final time, the 4th time he's been in the pits, and his transmission has gone. So that's a big shame there for Lopez, because he could have been in the frame for a point. And now Suspiri, the last man in terms of the standings, he's in 11th place. He is the only one who could be in the shout of a point, who's not in the points.
Well, we now have 17 laps left of the League 2 Adelaide Grand Prix. Alexander Rossi has a gap of 6.2 seconds over Dario Franchitti, but the fastest man on track at the moment is Danny Kvyat in the Pacific. He's on the fresher tyres. He's last of the front runners to pit, and he's now making that work to the best of his ability. He's already brought that gap to Franchitti down to 13 seconds. As he came out of the pits 2 laps ago, he was 17. Oh, a moment there for Adrian Sutil, hopping across the chicane at the start of the lap. But Sutil keeping his HRT points in the right way, and that will be a relief. HRT's looking, of course, for a good amount of points here. John Monroe getting in contact on the live chat saying this is a very interesting strategic battle. Well, John, you're in the middle of that interesting strategic battle. You've got Dario Franchitti there in 2nd place, running on a one-stop strategy, with Danny Kvyat bearing down on him at a rate of knots. And can Franchitti hold on to that if Kvyat is able to catch up by the end of the race? We still got a few more laps to go in this one. And we're looking at Suspiri, the only driver left running in this race who is not in a points-paying position. But with the rate of attrition we've seen here, Tom, can Suspiri actually make it to the end of this Grand Prix and maybe pick up a point if others in front of him fall?
It's a possibility, and it really wouldn't surprise me if at least one more driver was to drop out. I don't want to jinx anything here, but going back to Kvyat, he's really continuing to, to close in on Franchitti. If he was to win the race, Kvyat, he would need to take at least a second on average out of Rossi's lead, but that's just to catch up to him. So I think, in terms of the race win, I think that's going to be a tall order for Kvyat, but 2nd place is most certainly possible.
Well, here is Danny Kvyat looking at him in 3rd place. And in his quest to catch Alexander Rossi, he's also got the Scotsman Dario Franchitti in between them. So if he's able to catch up to Franchitti and overtake the HRT, that will inevitably cost him maybe a couple of seconds in going off the racing line and trying to pass him. So it's got to be more than a second a lap, really, if Kvyat is going to catch up to the LaRousse, who is right there in 1st place, finishing his 45th lap and starting his 46th. We're now about 14 laps away from the end of the League 2 race here in Adelaide. Only 1 car has been lapped so far, which we've got Sato there, who is about 1 minute 8 behind the race leader. The pole position time set by Dario Franchitti was a 1 minute 17.6. So Sato not in any immediate danger of being lapped here, as we look at Marcus Winkelhock going up the inside of Robert Wickens for 7th place. Now those two, they've had their dramas earlier on in this race. Winkelhock had a spin into the barriers and managed to keep his Eurobron running, while Wickens had to come into pits for a brake issue that the Leighton House mechanics had to repair. But now they're both on course for points. They've managed to keep the cars going, and there's something hazard. Mark Blundell in the life has spun into the barriers, and that is it for that particular life car. The life team is still in this race with Marino Sato, who will now be promoted into 9th place, but Blundell spinning out of contention presumably damaging his car on the barrier. Tom, we're now down to 10 runners.
Yeah, and Mark Blundell throwing it all away there, of course, for a 6th place finish for him and for Life, and that's a really, really big dent to their season, really. I say it's a big dent, you know, we're still in round 2.
Oh, sorry, Tom, a moment there for Frank Kitty. He's pushing with all he's got to try and keep 2nd place. He's gone for a hop, skip, and a jump across the chicane at the start of the lap. He's still pointing in the right direction, though. Maybe just calm it down a bit, Dario. You're not going to get the win here. And, oh, Danny Kvyat is showing us out of the race. And what has happened to the Pacific there? He's being carried away off the circuit. We haven't quite seen what's happened to him there. But, oh, we were talking about Kvyat possibly stealing 2nd place off of Dario Franchitti. And maybe, if he can, going for a charge after Alex Rossi. But I'm guessing, we didn't see on the camera, I'm guessing by where it is, he's also gone for a hop, skip, and a jump across the first corner and binned it into the barrier. We'll have to wait and see what the official reason is given as. But Tom, Kvyat out from a contending position again.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a reliability issue. My assumption would be that he's had a reliability issue. I mean, we've seen transmission break on a lot of drivers, so it could be that same problem there for Kvyat. You know, these gearboxes are very fragile, and you need to change gears a lot on this racetrack here in Adelaide, especially through this fast section where you're just sort of constantly shifting up and down, and you know, when a fast car is one thing, reliability is another, and unfortunately, reliability-wise for the Pacific has hit them once again. But at least Grosjean's still running at the moment in 7th place, and going after Robert Wickens, who's only 6 up the road from him. So Grosjean could get 6th here, or even 5th if he can go after Winkelhock.
Well, we've said it time and time again, Tom, reliability is such a big factor in the Grand Prix World Series. And here's Vincenzo Sospiri. It looks like he's unlapping himself on 2nd place Dario Franchitti. So to me, it looks like Franchitti has indeed calmed down a bit, and he's just making sure he gets to the end of the Grand Prix. And in doing so, he has allowed Vincenzo Sospiri to close in and unlap himself. Sospiri down in 9th place, and he's on for some points here if he can get to the end of the Grand Prix. The drivers have to complete at least 90% race distance to be able to be classified for points here, which on this particular track will be having completed lap 54. We're currently on lap 49, so if these drivers can complete another 5 laps, they will be classified, they will score points. But unfortunately for Danny Kvyat, he is retired too early. He's showing us in 10th place, but no points for the Russian. What a shame there. He was leading in the non-championship Vancouver Grand Prix earlier on this season. Leading quite comfortably, it has to be said, Tom, but he span out of contention there. And we're not sure what it was yet. It could have been a spin into the barrier. It could have been mechanical, as you say, Tom. We will find out at the end. But yeah, I think a lot of these team managers are going to have to focus a lot of their budget onto reliability.
Yes, and you know, with Kvyat retiring, I was just looking at who's moved up positions-wise. I mean, Will Stevens up to 4th and 10th on the grid. Winkelhock has moved up to 5th from 9th. Wirtz, who is already out of the race, actually, he's already out of it. He started 4th on the grid, did Wirtz. Grosjean he's up to 7th and 14th on the grid, which you would think it's a great job, but he had that mistake earlier, and he could have been in the frame for a top 5 finish, without a shadow of a doubt, for Grosjean. And I think going back to Kvyat, actually, he set the fastest lap of the race, didn't he, before he crashed out? So, well, he retired, I should say. So he would still get that point, wouldn't he, Topher?
Yes, indeed, he would still get that point. So I believe you are correct. I think it is Danny Kvyat who currently holds the fastest lap. We will get confirmation of that at the end of the Grand Prix. So a little bit of a consolation there for Kvyat and the Pacific team. He will still take home 1 point for fastest lap if he indeed holds on to that. And also Spiri running wide again there. He's been very erratic in this race, but somehow has kept that Andrea Moda for the most part on the circuit. And he's now running in 9th place. And oh no, Grosjean is now out of the race. It's a double retirement for the Pacific team. and we're not looking at it on screen at the moment, but Grosjean, we're now riding on board with the Stricken Pacific, and just like the Zaxby team, within a couple of laps of each other, both of the Pacific cars have exited this Grand Prix, and unfortunately, both of them before 90% completion. So, with the exception of a possible fastest lap point for Kvyat, that is a rather pointless outing for the Pacific team. We're now down to 8 runners left here in Adelaide. We were expecting a race of high attrition, and we might also get a bit of an attritional race in the League One race coming up after this. And it's all go at the moment, Tom. We've got cars dropping out left, right, and centre. We've still got 10 laps to go.
Yeah, and I did say we'd get at least a fair few more, and we have done. So Spiri up into 8th place in the Andrea Moda. Marino Sato in 7th there, the last driver who was not lapped.
Oh, we've got someone else off in front of him. Sorry, Tom. It looks like that was Robert Wickens. Yes, Wickens is now out of the race. He spun out of the final corner. We were riding on board with Marino Sato, and looking up the track in front of him, Wickens has gone and binned it into the barrier himself. That is both Leighton Houses out of the Grand Prix, and we're now down to 7 runners, Tom. I mean, we've got 8 laps to go here at Adelaide. Are we going to get any more dropping out?
I don't know. I hope we don't get too many more out. I mean, we do want to get a fair few finishes in this, but we didn't expect this kind of attrition. I mean, if you remember in the 1990 Grand Prix 2 World Championship race in Adelaide, I think we only had 6 finishes, didn't we?
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, it was a very low amount of runners, which is sort of what set the precedent for this race in Adelaide. We knew it would be a car breaker, but I don't think either of us were really expecting it to be this bad.
Yeah, it's taking its toll on the drivers again, but for Will Knight, he'll be pleased to see that Alex Rossi's not only still in the race, but leading. The 2 HRTs are still going as well. They're the only team who have got 2 cars still running now in this race. Darian Vrinkity in 2nd and Adrian Sutil in 3rd.
Now see, here's the thing for HRT, Tom. Before we got started with this championship, we were doing all the pre-season upgrades. John Monroe, the team principal of the HRT team, he elected to go all on power. He just wanted a fast car. He spent no money on reliability. And yet somehow we're in a highly attritional race, and he's got 2nd and 3rd place at the moment. Both of his cars are still running, and he's the only team manager who didn't spend any of his money on reliability. I mean, work that one out, Tom.
Well, he clearly took a huge gamble there, and clearly it paid off for him. So, he's on course for a good haul of points, but we've still got 8 laps to go, so who knows what could happen in these closing stages.
And Dave Goddard in the live chat is asking, last car running wins? I mean, Dave, you did say earlier on that we might have no finishers in this race. I mean, I laughed at that earlier on, but we've got 8 laps to go. We've only got 7 runners left. I mean, it might not have been a bad shout at the end of it. John Monroe saying, Topher, what have you done? I know, John. The commentator's curse. I know. We've seen it all the time in the Retro Racing Managers League. Not just in the Grand Prix World Series, but also in the 1990 League, the touring car season we're currently running, the Group C Challenge season that we did. And, there's Dario Frank Kitty. Frank Kitty has got a loose wheel. You can see it there on his rear left. Frank Kitty, who's on course for a podium here. And Rossi spun out of the lead. And Rossi, has he got damage on his car? He's backed it into the barrier. And Frank Kitty is out. Rossi's out as well. So we've had 2 of our potential podium finishers dropping out right near the end of this race. That has promoted Adrian Sutil into the lead. Will Stevens is up in 2nd, and Winkelhock, having spun to the back of the field earlier, is now on for a potential podium. And we said commentators curse, Tom. I mean, we know it's been bad in the Retro Racing Managers League. I mean, with Jake Sanson commentating on the many races that he's done, he's jinxed it enough times, and it seems that that particular jinx baton has now been passed on to us as well. But still, this is absolute madness.
I mean, tell me about it. And we've still got the League One race to come. I mean, if this is anything to go by, goodness knows what the League One race could bring later on today.
And looking at the lap counter, we are on lap 54, and if my math was correct, it was the completion of lap 54 that would count for classified points. So I think that Frank Kitty and Rossi may have just missed out on points there. We will have to confirm that when it comes to the end of the race. So Spiri having another crossed up moment there, but he's now running in what will be 5th place when he passes the wreck sides of Rossi, which he has just done now. So 5 runners left. Adrian Sutil leads ahead of Will Stevens. Marcus Finkelhock is up into 3rd. Debutant Marino Sato now runs in 4th, and Vincenzo Sospiri in the Andrea Moda into 5th. There is Adrian Sutil, our race leader. And the live chat is going a bit crazy at the moment. The commentator's curse striking again. Andrew Sampson is crossing everything that he's got. He wants to see Marino Sato get to the end of the race in his life. That will be 12 championship points for Sato on debut if he finishes where he is. We still have 5 laps left to go here, which may not sound like a lot, Tom, but anything can happen within 5 laps here in Adelaide.
Well, the good news for those who have just crossed the line, the top 4 so far, so Spiri should cross the line any moment now, is that they will all be classified as finishers. So even if any of them do drop out from here on in, they'll still get points.
And we do need to confirm whether Rossi and Frank Kitty will get points. I believe that they just miss out, basically on the lap that they should have completed, but we will confirm that when we get the full results at the end of the race. Tom, I can't quite believe that we still have the League One race to come. I feel like we've had enough action to last us at least 2 or 3 weeks worth of action here in Adelaide. But as it stands, Adrian Sutil on course to take the win that many will argue he should have taken in Taupo.
Yeah, tell me about it. And just touching on what you were saying about Frank Kitty and Rossi. Frank Kitty retired on lap 53. Rossi spun out on lap 54. So that's 7 laps from the end. So that would not see them classify. Just to make that a certainty for those who are just wondering whether they'll get points or not. The answer is no. But bear in mind that Dario Franchitti did get the point for pole position. So at least that's something that he'll be credited for this round. But Adrian Sutil on course for victory in the HRT.
And Phil Kinch is now fearing for the League One race. He is the head of the AGS team. He runs Alex Albon and Kevin Magnussen in his team. We will have to see later how they get on in that race and whether they get to the end. Not that I want to put any sort of jinx on you, Phil. I'm not trying to, I swear. It's not my intention. It's just the way that it goes when it comes to the Retro Racing Managers League. Anything can happen in this championship, and it usually does, to quote the great Murray Walker. And we're now looking at Will Stevens. They're in 2nd place. Now, he was a contender for victory in Taupo as well. He led a substantial amount of that race and could have taken what would have been a spectacular victory on debut. It wasn't to be for the young Brit, though. He retired from that race, and he's now on course for 2nd place here in Adelaide. And yeah, Tom, I'm hoping that we don't see any more retirements from this race. We've got 5 runners left out of the 26 that started. That's quite some reliability record, isn't it?
Yeah, and we did have a few drivers bending it into the barriers. I mean, Robert Wickens did so. Alex Verts as well, he binned it. Alex Rossi binned it. Who else binned it? Just trying to remember. Oh yeah, we had Brundle and D'Amato that came together on the opening lap, didn't we?
McNish as well, I believe, went off of his own accord as well. He was involved in an accident. So it's not just the fact that this circuit is a car breaker. It is a circuit that bites back if you push the limits too much. We mentioned earlier that the curbs on this circuit are a lot higher. You can actually see visibly there, they are higher than what you see on a normal circuit. So the drivers do tend to ride them a bit more than what they possibly should. But if you ride it in just the wrong way, then that might well be game over, as we have seen multiple times already in this race. Emma Featherstone commenting, what's happened? I've not been watching. So Emma, thank you for joining us in this race. So what has happened? Where do I start, Tom? I think the best way that I can sum everything up is 26 drivers started this race in Adelaide, and we're now on lap 58 of 60, and we only have 5 left. I think if I try to go through all of the different things that have happened in this race, we might be here until the end of the League One events later on. So, yeah, Emma Featherstone, just to wrap everything up, if you like, it's just been that kind of race. It's been highly attritional. We've had a lot of mechanical issues. We've had a lot of drivers pushing the limits, sometimes pushing them a bit too hard and spinning off into the barriers. It's been a very chaotic and very attritional race. And we're now looking at Will Stevens. We are going to be starting the penultimate lap very soon. I think the end of this race can't come soon enough for the remaining 5 drivers. They are all on course to score points. And we will confirm the point situation for Rossi and Franchitti as well. We believe they won't score points, but we will confirm that for certain when we get to the end of this particular race. Now, Marcus Finkelhock, he had a spin earlier on at the start of this race, which dropped him down to the back of the field. But since then, Tom, he's been very quiet, very anonymous, and just gone about his business. And at the moment, he's on course to have a reward of 3rd place.
Yes, and he's overtaken some cars on circuit as well. So he's put in terms of racecraft, he's done a very good job. He's 7 seconds clear of Marino Salto in 4th. That's the closest battle we've got on track now. We've only got 5 left in.
Well, there aren't
place.
really any battles going on at the moment. There's 2 big gaps at the moment.
Yeah, well, Adrian Sutil, providing he keeps the car on the road, is going to be on course for victory as he's about to start the final lap of this Adelaide League 2 race.
And there we go, Adrian Sutil has started his last lap. And he is on course for the victory that he maybe should have won in Taupo, so we can call this redemption for Sutil. Should he take that HRT all the way, please don't have any issues now, boys. Just get to the end of the race, take it easy, make sure the car stays on track. Let's have these 5 finishers all cross the line and complete this League 2 race. Adrian Sutil on course for victory, Will Stevens there in 2nd place, Marcus Finkelhock in 3rd, Marino Sato doing a very good job on his debut for life in 4th, and Vincenzo Sospiri, for me the surprise of the field. Maybe not necessarily for the right reasons, but he's been all over the place. He's been in multiple gravel traps, he's been crossed up more times than I can count on one hand, and yet he's on course for 5th place here, Tom.
Yeah, and he's going to be absolutely delighted. Even though he is the last man on the circuit, it's going to be incredibly ecstatic, but not as ecstatic as Adrian Sutil.
Well, he is now in the final sector of the lap, is Adrian Sutil. We're looking at Marcus Finkelhock there in 3rd place, but it looks like Adrian Sutil is going to cross the line, and there we go, he has done. Adrian Sutil wins the League 2 Adelaide's Grand Prix. A fantastic result there for Adrian Sutil, the HRT team, and John Munro taking his first victory in the Grand Prix World Series. We're going to have Will Stevens crossing the line in 2nd place for his first podium in the series. Marcus Finkelhock will finish 3rd, and Marino Sato is going to be in 4th on his debut ahead of Vincenzo Sospiri. And Tom, what a race that was! Not necessarily for the right reasons, but what a race that was!
Yeah, so many drivers falling by the wayside, and those you wouldn't think would still be in the race did. You know, Finkelhock, Sato, and Sospiri. You know, 5 finishes. I think that's the lowest number of finishes we've had so far in the Retro Racing Managers League race.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Tom. I'm trying to remember through the other series we've done as well. We don't just do Formula 1. We also do Group C Challenge, we do touring cars. And yeah, I think you're right, Tom. I'm trying to rack my memory thinking back to all the races we've done, and I think that might well be a new record for the lowest number of finishes in a Retro Racing Managers League race. The race is now officially over, so Spirit crosses the line. So it's confirmed that Sutil wins the race. Will Stevens in 2nd and Winkelhock in 3rd. Debut podiums for all 3 of them. Sato in 4th and Sospiri in 5th. Rossi is indeed classified, and Rossi picks up a few points there. Franchitti, unfortunately, just missing out there. Wickens is 8th, ahead of Grosjean and Kvyat. The 2 Pacifics dropping out within a couple of laps of each other. Mark Blundell ends in 11th, but all the retirements: Lopez, McCarthy, Bird, Heidfeld, Benaldi, Inoue, Wirtz, Speed, Conway, Ilott, McNish, Jarni, Zanardi, Brundle, and D'Amato all did not finish in what has been a very attritional League 2 race here on the streets of Adelaide. And to confirm the fastest lap, Danny Kvyat does indeed get a point for fastest lap there. So a little bit of consolation there for the Pacific team there, Tom.
Yes, and well, that should have been a solid podium for Kvyat, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately. I didn't quite pick up what the problem was for Kvyat. Did you pick up on it, Topher, when the classification was going through?
I believe it said crash on the official reason. We will go back and check the footage of that just to make sure. Everything will get posted onto the Retro Racing Managers League Wikipedia that we have, which contains details of all of our racing championships. We have the Grand Prix World Series, we have touring cars, we've got the 1991 Formula One season coming up. And if you missed out on our 1990 season, go and check that out. And if you want to get an idea of what that's like, basically we are rewriting history in Formula One. And already in 1990, we have a different champion. I'm not going to go and spoil who if you want to go back and watch that for the first time. But go and check it out. It is amazing racing. But at the moment, we are focusing on the Grand Prix World Series. That was the League 2 race, won by Adrian Sutil in a very attritional race. What is League 1 going to hold? Tune in 5 minutes' time to find out. See you then.
Ah, what music!
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready? The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Attaboy. Let me drive. I will make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind?
That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It isn't like being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm going to give you an engine low to the ground, extra big oil pan will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when he runs it close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm going to give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm going to shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this.
And when we get you primed, painted, and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and 1 or 2 of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last. There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
I mean, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? Come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, Nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. You sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
Yeah, you gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, he can drive. He can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
look out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes, every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it? What we do, it's passion, love, which is why we're prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own.
Please let me race.
fine. And let's race.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the League One race here on the streets of Adelaide in Australia. We had a highly attritional League Two race, which was won by Adrian Suttill in HRT ahead of Will Stevens and Marcus Winkelhock. And Tom, do you think we might see that same sort of drama happening in a League One race?
Do you know what? If it happened to be the case, Topher, I really wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we've seen it statistically. We saw it in Group C in the 1990 Grand Prix Tour Championship and the Grand Prix World Series races in Adelaide, that it really takes its toll on the cars. And, you know, if today was to match what's happened, you know, in terms of the attrition, then, you know, we could be in for a thrill of this one. And maybe a new race winner in the Grand Prix World Series, because we've got Andre Lotterer in the BS Scuderia Italia on pole position. Could they be in the frame for their first ever victory in the GPWS?
Well, there would be a first ever Grand Prix World Series victory for the BMS Scuderia team, which this season is being run by Emma Featherstone. But Andre Lotterer, already a race winner himself back when he was with the AGS team in Season 1. He won the Marrakesh Grand Prix last time out. We have Scott Dixon in second place with the Simtech team. He hasn't yet won a Grand Prix, so maybe he could challenge for victory today. But then behind him, we've got Simona Di Silvestro, who put in a very good performance in qualifying. She took third place on the grid. She's a newbie to the Grand Prix World Series. Maybe she can challenge for victory. It is all to play for here on the streets of Adelaide. But as we have seen, Tom, it might more be a case of not necessarily being the fastest, but just being the more reliable and being the best at keeping your car out of the barriers. There's so many different factors at play here in Adelaide, and I'm actually wondering, Tom, whether for future seasons, maybe Adelaide should be moved to a later slot in the calendar for Season 3, as at this point in the championship, the only upgrades that the team managers have been able to apply are the ones they did pre-season. We haven't had our first upgrade window of the season yet. That comes after round 3. So maybe for Season 3, Tom, we should have a look at Adelaide being a bit later on in the season when the managers have had chance to upgrade the reliability of their cars a bit.
I don't know if it's a coincidence that, you know, the cars have obviously not been reliable enough today, or, you know, that's the whole thing. It's quite a lottery. You know, it may not just have been on Adelaide, but any racetrack really. It could have been, you know, somewhere else, Topher, where we've had the attrition that we've had so far in the League 2 race. So we have to wait and see how the League 1 race goes, and hopefully we can get more finishes in this one than we did earlier on today.
Well, we do listen to all of the opinions of our team managers and also our viewers as well. If you are watching this race with us, get in touch via the live chat. Any comments you might have on the particular Grand Prix that's happening at the moment. Be sure to put down your thoughts. Do you think maybe Adelaide should be moved into a later slot in the season? Do you think actually this is quite fun having an attritional race, seeing who can get it to the end? Let us know your thoughts about it. But for now, let's crack into the action. We have one driver change to make you aware of in the lead up to this Grand Prix, and that is at Midland, Nicola Larini has been dropped after one race with the Midland Racing outfit by Michael Gillespie, the team manager there. Larini didn't really have the best time of it in the opening race of the season. Just looking through my notes here, he qualified 25th out of 26, and he went on to finish in 16th place. He did make up a few positions, but for Michael Gillespie, he thought that's not good enough, and he's dropped the Italian, instead bringing in Tiago Monteiro, who did race for Midland Racing in real life. So maybe a good move there to bring the Portuguese driver in. And Tom, Monteiro, surely he's got to do better than Larini.
I should think so too. He's the younger man in the team. He's obviously got his experience with the Midland team from when he was racing with them in 2006. Will it be the right decision for Michael? I'm not 100% sure. I would have given Larini a bit more time. I don't like drivers being replaced after just one race or something. It just doesn't bode well with me, to be honest with you. I'm more the guy that gives drivers a certain amount of time to really prove themselves before making a decision of what to do with them. But it is Michael's decision after all, and could Monteiro perform better than Larini? Who knows?
Well, in terms of qualifying performance, as I said, Larini qualified 25th last time out in Taupo. Monteiro has already bettered that. He qualified in 16th place for today's race. But as we have seen, Tom, this might more be a race of attrition. So will the inexperience of Monteiro count against him? We'll have to wait and see on that one. But let's crack on with the race and get into it. Let's see what happens in the League One race. And starting on pole position, as we said already, Andre Lotterer and the BMS Scuderia Italia ahead of Scott Dixon on the front row. Simona Di Silvestro puts the Mastercard Lola into third, ahead of vice-champion Brendan Hartley. Takuma Sato on row 3, ahead of Jaime Alguersuari in the Prost. Reigning champion John-Eric Verne lines up in 7th, ahead of Marco Andretti. Nico Hulkenberg and Kazuki Nakajima make up row 5. And Taupo race winner Kamui Kobayashi on row 6, ahead of Pietro Fittipaldi. The AGS of Alex Albon is ahead of the Minardi of Tom Christensen on row 7. And then the second Minardi of Jos Verstappen ahead of Monteiro, the debutante. Magnussen and Buemi are on row 9, ahead of Fraines and Whincup on row 10. Pedro Della Rosa in the second of the Prosts is on row 11. He's ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa. Row 12 is Paul di Resta and Mika Salo. And at the back is Tatiana Calderon and Jeff Gordon, who had a back-of-the-grid penalty after causing a collision with Kazuki Nakajima in Taupo. Tom, what's going to happen here? What do you reckon?
I think Di Silvestro will make a blinder of a start and get in front of Dixon and Lotterer, and that will most definitely put on the show.
Well, we are ready for the start of this race. They're waiting for the lights to go out. Lotterer on the right, Dixon on the left, and they are away. The League One race here at Adelaide is going. Lotterer has got a good start there. Dixon still holding on to second. It looks like Sato's trying to get down the inside of Di Silvestro, but the Swiss miss holds on around the outside of turn 1. A little bit of argy-bargy in the back, and we've got a couple of cars in the barrier there. And to me, that looks like a bit of a carbon copy of what happened in the League 2 race. Is Whincup and Felix da Costa, who are both out. That is more or less exactly what happened in the League 2 race, Tom. We've got 2 cars out already. We haven't seen any replays of it yet. We'll have to have a look back at the footage later on, but straight away, both Whincup and da Costa out of this Grand Prix.
Well, we lost 2 drivers in the League 2 race in similar circumstances. Is that a sign of things to come in this race? You can see Lotterer going over the curb, maintaining his lead ahead of Dixon. Then it's Di Silvestro in third, Sato, Harley, Hulkenberg, Verne, and Andretti. As you can see, Jean-Luc Verne down the inside of Hulkenberg for 6th place there.
And so also, sorry Tom, also Dixon has gone down the inside of Lotterer for the lead. So while one Simtech falls by the wayside and retires on the opening corner, the other one's just taking the lead, and there's Di Resta being hit up the back by, I think that might be Mika Salo in the 40 Corsi, so another couple of cars going out of this race already. So we were talking about attrition earlier on, Tom, and well, the start of this race has been absolutely chaotic, and the replays have missed what has happened there, but Salo missing both his front wing and his rear wing, and to me, it looks like Di Resta doesn't have a lot of obvious damage, so maybe he's been hit up the rear, which has affected his gearbox. And both of them pulling over to the side of the road. Di Resta is out, and Salo is out, on top of Jamie Whincup and Antonio Felix da Costa. So 4 cars already dropping out of the League One race, and there is Scott Dixon, who has taken the lead of this Grand Prix. And as I was saying about Simtech, there's a bit of a bittersweet start for Scott Woodwiss's team. He's got one driver who is already out of this race, and the other one who has taken the lead and might well, I say he might well, we've got a long way to go, but can he go on and take Simtech's first ever Grand Prix World Series victory? We still have a long way to go, Tom.
We do, and Scott Woodwiss is destined to get a victory at some point. He was close to doing so in the first season of the Grand Prix World Series. Could he do so at the 17th attempt? And you can see Scott Dixon already pulling out a gap of 1.2 seconds on Andre Lotterer in second place, and then it's Di Silvestro, and then Salto. Jean-Luc Verne continues to make his way through the field. He's up to fifth. He's having a much better time of it this time around.
Oh, there's one there for Verne. Sorry, Tom. Verne has gone off. As you were saying that, Tom, about Verne making some progress up through the field, Verne has gone and binned it into the barrier. And I'm already getting vibes of the League 2 race here. We had a lot of drivers going off for that particular section of the track. Verne is trying to make his way back onto the circuit, trying to work his way out of the gravel trap. It's easier said than done down there. And I don't think he's got any damage on that BAR, so he might have got away with that. But once he gets out of the gravel trap, he'll have to then make his way back up towards the back of the pack again. And looking at it, Tom, I can't see any visible damage. So yeah, I think he might have got away with that one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Oh, he's damaged it now.
Yeah, there was a bit of damage. Oh, there goes the other BAR. Buemi has crashed it completely. He's ripped off the rear right of his car. And that is an absolute calamity for the BAR team. And Buemi, he took a brilliant podium at Taupo and is running second in the championship at the moment as a result. And Tom Butterworth, he must have his head in his hands right now, as Werner spun into the barrier and picks up some damage to the front wing. And then what must have been about half a lap later, Buemi's gone and spun himself and completely destroyed the rear end of his car. That is not how this is supposed to go for the reigning champion team. BAR took both titles last season. Jean-Eric Verne is the reigning champion of the Grand Prix World Series, and BAR took home the Constructors. Verne being partnered that season for 6 races by Buemi, and then for the rest of the season by Pascal Wehrlein. Buemi was brought back into the team for season 2, and from the first race it looked like it was a fantastic call by Tom Butterworth, as Buemi took home second place, only just behind race winner Kamui Kobayashi, who, funnily enough, is managed by Tom's wife Emma Butterworth. She is ahead of the Arrows team, which runs Kobayashi and Nico Hülkenberg, and they're currently running 6th with Hülkenberg and 8th with Kobayashi. And what a start to the Grand Prix for BAR that is, Tom, but not in the right way.
No, it's not, and the season's not getting any better for them. I mean, Verne had a disastrous time in Taupo, and he's back in the pits now. He had to do a full lap with a broken front wing, and he's going to be close to a lap.
We've got a moment there for Jaime Alguersuari, who's run wide over the curves. We said it enough times during the League 2 race, these curves bite back if you push them too hard. And Alguersuari, he's run wide there, gone across the curves, and as a result, part of his front wing has broken off. These drivers, they will have been looking at the League 2 race, thinking maybe we just need to keep it a bit calm and make sure that we get to the end. And Verstappen has had a moment there in the Minardi, who's trying to go around the outside of the stricken Jaime Alguersuari there, who's ailing back to the pits. And Verstappen getting onto the marbles. There will be marbles down from the League 2 race as well, don't forget. And Verstappen getting it all wrong and hitting a barrier, but I think he's got away with it. He hasn't pulled into the pits, so I'm guessing he doesn't have any damage. Verstappen seemingly having got away with that. But Alguersuari now into the pits, as is Tatiana Calderon. That is unscheduled there for the MasterCard loader, so maybe she's picked up damage somewhere as well. That will be off camera, we haven't seen it anywhere. But this early in the race, Tom, I think she may have also had a trip across the curves.
Yeah, it's all kicking off, isn't it? We're only on lap 5 of the race, and we've had 5 drivers drop out already. We've had another couple breaking front wings by going over curves too much. I don't know how this race is going to finish. It's just a matter of survival of the fittest, isn't it?
I think a lot of the team managers now will be looking towards the upgrade window, which is not after this race. It is after the next race, which will be at the Malaysian circuit of Sepang. making its return to the Formula 1 calendar. A very popular choice amongst our team managers there. A lot of people were quite upset when Sepang was dropped off the real-life Formula 1 calendar, and we have brought it back for the Grand Prix World Series. So Sepang is up next after the Adelaide Grand Prix, and then after that race we will have the first round of upgrades. And we've already seen from Mike Smith, the team manager of the Zaxby team, oh, Verstappen's lost it! Verstappen, he had his moments earlier on, it looked like he got away without any damage, but maybe just a bit of maybe suspension damage or a slow puncture maybe, but Verstappen has got it all wrong coming through the chicane. He's now had a bit more of a hefty impact, and the Minardi is out of this race.
He dropped it on the curb, didn't he? He just bounced over the curb too much, clouded with the wall. It looks like he could have got away with it there with that slightest touch, but clearly the suspension took too much damage from it, and that's the end of the Dutchman's Adelaide Grand Prix. As you can see, Scott Dixon 3 seconds clear of Simona Di Silvestro in second place now, ahead of Andre Lotterer. Sato keeping his nose clean in fourth. As you can see, his teammate Kazuki Nakajima under pressure from Marco Andretti in the Manor.
Marco Andretti, he was drafted into the Manor team quite late actually. For those of you who didn't see in the early parts of the season, Sam Hall, the team manager of Manor, he took the decision to sign Hollywood actor Tom Cruise to the team. And we had a whole roundabout with that about whether Tom Cruise was eligible, but then we discovered that he was eligible by the fact that Red Bull offered him a test. And is this Kamui Kobayashi going slow? Kobayashi is pulling onto the side of the circuit. The Taupo race winner, championship leader, is now out of the Adelaide Grand Prix. We've had another driver fall by the wayside. To me, that looks like it's a mechanical issue. And we're now looking at Kobayashi's countryman Nakajima getting it all wrong, coming onto the back straight. Andretti behind him. Just to finish off my points about Manor, Tom Cruise was drafted into the Manor team, and he was eligible by the fact that Red Bull have actually offered Tom Cruise a proper test in a Formula 1 car, which he took at Willow Springs. After one race, after the non-championship Vancouver Grand Prix, Tom Cruise actually left the team. So more than anything, he was there just to collect footage for an upcoming Hollywood movie that he's making, taking the opportunity of his eligibility in the Grand Prix World Series to have a go with the Manor team. And then after, he actually finished 10th in the Vancouver race, if I remember correctly. He had a very good time of it, finished the race in quite a comfortable position. But then after he departed the team, after he had enough footage, Sam Hall then brought in Marco Andretti to replace him, keeping it an American seat. Andretti, of course, more famous for his IndyCar exploits, but a former test driver for the Honda Formula 1 team. He's now having a go of it in the Grand Prix World Series. And last time out, he finished in the points on his debut. Marco Andretti took home 9th place, ahead of today's pole sitter Andre Lotterer, who we ride on board with now. So Marco Andretti, looking like a pretty solid choice for Sam Hall there. Finished in 9th place on his debut, now running in 8th and putting Kazuki Nakajima in the Onyx under pressure. And Sato there in the other Onyx getting it all wrong, ahead of the other Manor of Brendan Hartley. So we've got Onyx versus Manor in both parts of the track. Sato seemingly under a lot of pressure there from Brendan Hartley, who is the vice champion of this championship. He finished runner-up to Jean-Eric Verne in Season 1. He wants a title this time out. And Hartley, he's doing everything right at the moment. Checking my notes here, he finished 14th in the Taupo race, so a pointless start to the season so far, but putting that behind him, and he's now running in 5th place. And Tom, if you think back to Season 1, Hartley didn't have the strongest start to the season, but then came on strong later on with, I think it was 3 victories across the second half of the season, and finished the season 2nd overall. Hartley really needs to hit the ground running this time around if he's going to challenge for the title.
I agree with you more there, Topher, and I can imagine that Hartley will have a clean race in this one. I think from what he's learned from the League 2 race he's watched earlier, I think he'll just not take too many races to begin with, and once we get to the closing stages, if he's in a battle for position with someone else, he could be within the shout of a podium finish possibly.
So we're running on lap 9. There is your race leader, Scott Dixon, running very well at the moment. He's got a lead of 4.2 seconds ahead of Simona Di Silvestro. Then, Lotterer having a moment there, but the German has held on to that beautifully. He's finding the limits of that BMS Scuderia Italia. And as we start lap 10, so Dixon leads ahead of Di Silvestro and Lotterer. Sato just about holding on to 4th place ahead of Brendan Hartley in the Manor. Nico Hulkenberg, in the sole remaining Arrows, is in 6th place ahead of Kazuki Nakajima, who's trying to fight off the attentions of Marco Andretti. Kevin Magnussen in the AGS is in 9th place ahead of his teammate Alex Albon in 10th. Christensen just outside of the points in a Minardi. And Christensen, he is an absolute legend in the world of motorsports. If you don't know about him, first of all, where have you been? And secondly, the reason why he's so highly regarded is he is known as Mr. Le Mans himself. The number of times he's won Le Mans, I think it's 9 if I remember correctly, Tom. I think he's won Le Mans 9 times. An absolute legend of the sport. Came into the Grand Prix World Series a bit with age on his side, it must be said. He is into his 50s now. And we thought he might not make a fair go of this in a Grand Prix World Series, given that he is past the peak of his powers. But to be fair, Tom, he's running well. He's actually just taken 10th place off of Alex Albon, so Christensen putting all of his experience to good use, and he's now running in the points.
Indeed, Jeff Gordon has also got past Thiago Montero. He also got by Pedro de la Rosa on the previous lap to move up into 15th, and now he's up into 14th place past Montero. So Jeff Gordon having a good race so far, having a good clean running this time, unlike in Taupo. And then the next man up front is Pietro Fittipaldi.
Well, Jeff Gordon, he took a back of the grid penalty after Taupo for taking out Kazuki Nakajima. There was an incident between those two in the opening stages of the race. The blame was laid on Jeff Gordon for that, and for this race he was sent to the back of the grid. But we're on lap 11, and he's gone from 26 up into 14th place. Gordon is having an absolute flyer of a race here. So he will be looking to, well, first and foremost, Tom, he will be looking to just get to the end of this Grand Prix. As we know, this race has been an absolute car breaker. And will Gordon see it through to the end of the race? We all hope that he does, but at the same time, we hope that all of the remaining runners do.
Indeed, and looking at Dixon, who is continuing to extend the gap, it's now 4.7 seconds over Di Silvestro. Lotterer, despite that mistake over the curb a few moments ago, is still in 3rd place. As you can see there, riding on board with Thiago Montero, just cut away from him. And next, De La Rosa. De La Rosa didn't have a good time in Taupo, and he's not having the best of races so far here in Adelaide. I don't know what's got into De La Rosa in the last couple of races, because he missed out by the narrowest of margins in the non-championship race, and his run of bad luck is not on his side again. But having said that, we saw it at the beginning of season 1, Topher, where his reliability record wasn't great, but yet he still was able to put the car on pole on some of the races. He had more pole positions than any other driver in season 1.
And he was also a race winner in Season 1 as well. De La Rosa has been very successful so far in the Grand Prix World Series, but as you say, Tom, not really had the best time of it so far in Season 2. He did have the pace in the non-championship Vancouver Grand Prix, but when it's come to the actual championship races at Taupo and here at Adelaide, he's just not really been there, and I can't really think of any explanation for that, Tom. We have all of the team managers on the grid who are upgrading the cars the best way that they can. And yeah, there's not really any obvious explanation as to why De La Rosa is so far off the pace at the moment. He's behind Thiago Montero as, Kazuki Nakajima going for a spin there in the Onyx. Nakajima's been under pressure from the manner of Marco Andretti. And is that a mistake of pressure there, Tom?
It could well be, and Nakajima just pushed a bit too hard there, going over the curb. But once you hit that gravel or that dust on the left-hand side, there's just no grip whatsoever, and that's cost Nakajima dearly there. And he's well down the order. I think he's down to 16th place now. Is the Onyx driver running well up in the points, and now he's throwing it all away through his own making.
And Pietro Fittipaldi is pulling off to the side of the circuit there. While we have one BMS Scuderia Italia fighting in the upper reaches of the field, the other one drops out of contention. It is a transmission problem for Pietro Fittipaldi. We saw a few gearbox issues in the League 2 race, and it now looks like we're starting to get a few more here as well. So far, Tom, not that I want to, jinx anything, put the RRML commentators' curse onto this, but we're now about to start lap 14 of this Grand Prix, and to me anyway, Tom, it seems like the attrition rate generally is a lot better in this race.
Yep, it just seems to have calmed down a little bit, hasn't it? But there's still a long way to go yet. We still have yet to have the scheduled pit stops. It'll be interesting to know what Dixon is on. If he's going to be pitting 2/3 distance, we would expect him to be on a 2-stop. And maybe Di Silvestro and Lotter will be on the 1-stop. Having said that, Salsa and Hartley have got quite a gap between them and the top 3, haven't they? So strategy is going to be the way to go, I think. I think we saw in the League 2 race, I think we found out that the 2-stop is the better option.
Strategy was a very big part of the League 2 race. I mean, ultimately, it didn't matter too much as we only had 5 finishes, but the potential for a gigantic battle towards the end of the race was there. We had Dario Franchitti on a 1-stopper, while the likes of Kvyat and Cecil were on 2-stoppers. And it was brewing up to be a fantastic battle towards the end. We had Franchitti, who was on older tyres but had track position, and Kvyat, who was on a 2-stop on fresher tyres but chasing down the HRT. And both retired ultimately anyway, so it was a bit superfluous in the end. But the potential was definitely there, and if we can have a better race of attrition this time round, which at the moment it seems like we are, then maybe we could have that strategic battle that we were deprived of in the League 2 race. Looking at the live chat, a few people calling out the commentator's curse, Sam Hall and Ryan Ferris there. Hello boys, by the way. Yeah, let me just say that a commentator's curse is never intentional. I'm sure Jake Sanson would back me up on that one. We don't mean to jinx any of the teams, drivers and team managers in the Retro Racing Managers League. It just happens, okay? I'm not in control of what's going on. Although, that looks like a problem because Di Silvestro, the Mastercar Lola, pulling off to the side of the circuit. And Di Silvestro, for me, Tom, she's a bit of a dark horse this season, actually. There's a bit of damage there as she goes over the curb. I think that Di Silvestro is actually a bit of a dark horse for this championship. So if you cast your mind back to Vancouver, she won that race, which turned out to be a non-championship event anyway, but she actually went and got victory in Canada, and here she qualified in 3rd place. She's there or thereabouts in terms of pace, and I reckon she could actually mount a serious championship battle should the reliability hold up, Tom.
I agree with you, Topher. You've just seen Di Silvestro pulling to the side there. She's got to be careful not to come back onto the racetrack, because through that section of the Kemmel Terrace, there's a yellow flag there. Someone else has had a moment there. Who's that's gone off?
It looks like it was a Manor. I'm not quite sure which one, but one of the Manors is pointing the wrong way. That is Marco Andretti pointing the wrong way. He had just gone past Nakajima earlier on as he pressured the Japanese into a mistake. And now it seems like he's made a mistake of his own. He's trying to get around the right way again. He's facing the wrong direction in the gravel trap. It's okay for him to be going the wrong way on a gravel trap because he's off the racing line. He's not necessarily in the way of anyone, but he will want to get out there as soon as possible. Di Silvestro is still cruising along. It looks like she's trying to find a safe place to pull over by a marshal's post. But really, she should be retiring that car as soon as possible. And Andretti, as I said, Tom, he's facing the wrong way and going in the wrong direction. But given that he is off the racing line, he's in the gravel trap and actually on the circuit, I don't think there will be any problem in terms of getting in anyone's way.
No, I'm just really worried as to how long it'll be before Di Silvestro finally comes to a stop. And she still hasn't come to a stop. This is not good news, really, for the drivers who are trying to get round her. I think she should be out of the way. Yeah, I think she's out of the way by the looks of it. I think she's trying to go back as far as the pit lane, but I don't think she's going to be able to go that far.
And I'm just looking at the standings here, Tom, and there we go. Di Silvestro, she's now being pulled off. It was a transmission issue for the Mastercar Lola. I'm just looking at the timing screens here, Tom. Jeff Gordon is up into 9th place. He started dead last, and we haven't really had that many retirements compared to the League 2 race. But Jeff Gordon, he's just quietly gone about his business, and he's now running in the points. For me, the driver of the race so far. And there's a moment for Alex Albon. Sorry, Tom. There's a moment there for Alex Albon, and looks like he's kept it running. And that's given Gordon 8th place now. He's made up another position here in Adelaide. But Alex Albon, having a run across the curbs there, it looks like he's got away with that one. He hasn't got any damage. Now, Scott Dixon has come into pits. He's the first of the leaders to pit, which means he was lighter on fuel. So he's been able to make up his advantage here. Lotterer has gone through into the lead, Harley's into second, Sato's into third. So Dixon was running a lot lighter than everyone else, which is how he got his advantage. It looks like he's going to be on a 2-stop strategy here. And he's now out of pits. He's out behind Magnussen and ahead of Robin Fraines. So he might have been able to get himself some clear air here. We're waiting for the timing screens to update to see how far Dixon is behind Magnussen. But Dixon having an absolute blinding race so far, building up a huge gap at the front of the field. And there is your reason why he was on a lighter fuel strategy than everyone else. It's going to be a 2-stop strategy for the Simtek. Will that convert into a race win? We will have to wait and see how the rest of this race pans out. Dixon is 1.5 seconds behind Magnussen, so he's got a bit of clear air to play with. But on the fresher tyres, it won't be at all long before he gets onto the back of the AGS.
Yeah, and Dixon will want to get by the AGS very quickly. It depends on when Lotterer comes into the pits, I suppose. If Lotterer's on the 1-stop, which is a possibility, then this is going to play into Dixon's hands with the 2-stop, because the 2-stop is the better strategy for Adelaide. You can see Nakajima pulling alongside the Prost of Pedro De La Rosa for 11th place, and it's a slam dunk manoeuvre there for the Japanese driver. So Lotterer staying over another lap, and Magnussen's in the pits in the AGS.
So Magnussen pits, which clears Scott Dixon and gives him the clear air to chase after Nico Hülkenberg and keep the lead of this race. Robin Fraines is also into the pits as well from 7th. And De La Rosa goes for a spin, nearly collecting Kazuki Nakajima with him. That was a close call there with the Onyx. De La Rosa pushing too hard in the final sector. And he's done what Verne did earlier and multiple drives at League 2 as well. And a lot of damage there. De La Rosa really hitting the curb hard there, and that is an absolute disaster for De La Rosa, not just because he spun out, but he's picked up that damage as he's passed the pit entry, so he's got to do an entire lap now with a missing front wing. That is an absolute disaster for the Prost team, which, Tom, it is your team. I mean, what are you thinking right now?
Well, both De La Rosa and Alvaro have broken their front wings in this race, but there's still a long way to go yet with how this race has gone out so far. So De La Rosa having to complete a full lap on a broken front wing, and he's going to be well down the order by the time he comes in for his start. I don't know if he's actually pitted yet as De La Rosa. I don't think he has, so he may be able to use that stop as his schedule one, if you want to put it in those words, and and not lose as much time that way.
And as Christensen gets back into points paying positions as he passes Kevin Magnussen, I think he might be right there, Tom. That might be a case of good timing there for De La Rosa if he needed to pit around about that time anyway. Obviously, he will fall further down the order as he lacks the downforce. He can't get a full speed out of his Prost, but that could maybe be the best timing for him in terms of getting his pit stop out of the way. We'll have to see where he comes out. He's currently ahead of Tatiana Calderon in the sole remaining MasterCard Lola, and she has actually just gone past De La Rosa for 14th place. We're now looking at Andre Lotterer in the lead, who still hasn't pitted. We haven't seen what his pit strategy is at the moment. He could be on the one-stop strategy, as Dario Franchitti was in the League 2 race, but we'll have to wait and see how it pans out. We haven't seen the digital readout on his steering wheel yet. He goes through for another lap. He's going to start lap 21 this time round. So I'm starting to think that Lotterer is indeed on a one-stop strategy, which may suggest why he was slower in comparison to Scott Dixon earlier on. There is Kazuki Nakajima behind Montero, who's doing very well on his debut. He's up into 7th place. Now, Montero was drafted into the Midland Racing team in place of Nicola Larini, who did not at all impress Michael Gillespie in the opening race of the season. And straight away, Michael Gillespie and Hülkenberg being forced wide there by Dixon. Dixon trying to get down the inside, and it threw Hülkenberg offline. I'm not saying that Dixon was at fault or anything there, just Hülkenberg having to get offline to allow Dixon space. He's now gone into a barrier. Doesn't look like he has any damage, so he should be okay. He's down into 5th place now. We'll have to wait and see how all of the pit stops pan out. And De La Rosa has been into pits and is back out again, and put some move there on what I think was Jean-Eric Verne, who had his earlier escapades through the gravel trap. They're now fighting over 16th position. Here is Takuma Sato in 3rd place, 7.5 seconds off the lead of Andre Lotterer at the moment. Sato, we're not sure what strategy he's doing either. He carries on for another lap, so maybe he's on a one-stopper as well. This is becoming absolutely fascinating for strategy in this race. We mentioned earlier we were deprived of that strategic battle in the League 2 race, and so far there's been a much better rate of attrition, so maybe we will see those battles play out towards the end, Tom.
Yes, and Sato within a good shout of a good finish as well. He finished 4th last time out in Taupo. He's on course for another top 4 finish with 3rd place. Scott Dixon continuing to make up the time from his pit stop. He's doing a very, very good job in his second boots. I was going to say boots. I was going to say second pair of boots, but you've got 4 wheels, haven't you? Second set of tyres. Let's just say that, Topher, with Dixon. And he's closing in on Sato as well. So Dixon's... For me, this is Dixon's race to lose, with the way it's panning out for him.
And Brendan Hartley getting it all wrong there into the hairpin. Sorry to cut across you, Tom. Brendan Hartley chasing after Andre Lotterer for the lead of this race, pushing a bit too hard there, getting it all crossed up and locking up the front tyres, but he's able to continue without any damage. I don't think he's pitted yet either, has he, Tom? So maybe he's on a one-stop strategy as well.
I agree with you there, and yes, I would think that Sato is going to be on that one-stop strategy. I don't think Hulkenberg's been in the pits either, so I would expect him to go on the one-stop. As you can see, Alex Albon running wide there in the AGS. Done a quiet race so far, apart from that spin he made earlier on that kept him in the running. But you know, it's nevertheless it's been a good. Alguersuari's done a very good job actually in the Prost. He came in for that front wing damage. He's already back up into 7th place, Topher.
He's had a bit of a quiet race for the most part, but he's up there or thereabouts. He's currently 4.3 seconds behind the AGS of Alex Albon, trying to close in to get some more championship points for his benefit. Scott Dixon, the only one of the top 5 so far who has pitted, and he is here trying to put the moves on Takuma Sato, and he does indeed go up into 3rd place, Dixon on the fresher tyres. And it was quite apparent from the League 2 race that the 2-stop strategy was the way to go. But clearly the League 1 teams are thinking differently on this one and thinking maybe Frank Kitty's 1-stop strategy was the way to go. So it appears that Lotterer, Hartley, Sato and Hulkenberg are trying a 1-stop strategy, while Dixon's going what appeared to be the more conventional way. Dixon currently 8.4 seconds off the lead, having just overtaken Takuma Sato. He is the fastest man on circuit at the moment, making the best use of his fresh tyres. Currently 3.1 seconds behind Brendan Hartley, who we're looking at now. There is the visible gap on screen. So Dixon trying to make some headway. It's currently 3.1, as I said, and we're looking at the next sector split now. It's now down to 2.4 seconds, so Dixon really closing in on Brendan Hartley here. And you can see just visually how much he is closing in here. And once he dispatches the Kiwi, he will be setting off after race leader Andre Lotterer. Lotterer looking to convert pole position into his 2nd Grand Prix World Series victory. He won last season in Marrakesh, taking his only win of the season, as was AGS's only win of the season as well. Now we're riding on board with Montero. Looks a bit out of shape there. Oh, he's banging wheels with Christensen. Tom Christensen in the Minardi trying to get past the 9th place, and he's made the move stick, but a bit of argy-bargy there, Tom, as he tries to get past the Midland.
I wonder if he's made a mistake somewhere, Montero, and he's got out of shape. I'd be interested to know if he's got a problem with his brakes, because it could well be because he's losing a lot of time, this Montero, in the pits shortly for his first pit stop. And you can see here Brendan Hartley in 2nd place, just ahead of Scott Dixon. It's just a matter of time before Dixon gets past the man. I would expect him to do it on the back straight. Just got a few more corners before he can do that.
I mean, you can visually see, Tom, that Dixon is closing right in on Hartley. He's wasting no time at all in getting up to the back of that manor. Here is Andre Lotterer on the back straight, just keeping it calm, keeping in this rhythm, trying to get to the end of the race, or at least to the end of this stint first. He still has a pit stop to make. He's now on lap 25 out of 60, so I think that is pretty much confirmed, Tom, that he is indeed on a one-stop strategy. Tom Christensen making a bit of a mistake there and locking up the rears, but he's keeping it going in 9th place. Christensen having a good race here. And Tom Christensen at the last race in Taupo came across the line in 12th place. He had a solid race in New Zealand. Not really too much to write home about on his Grand Prix World Series debut, but today running in 9th place on course for some points.
Yeah, And Christensen looking to add to his. I don't know if he finished in the points last time out, so I just want to have a recap of where he finished in Taupo for Tom Christensen.
He finished in 12th.
He came in 12th. Yeah, he came in 12th in the first championship race of the season. He actually finished in the top 6 in Vancouver, but he didn't get points for that as it was a non-championship round. But he's doing well in this one so far. He's pulling off a few overtakes in this one, and he could be in for a good shout of a good haul of points, depending on how many cars are left in this one.
And the team manager of Minardi, actually we're looking at Scott Dixon trying to make the move here on Brendan Hardy. He's caught up to the back of the Manor. He's throwing it down the inside into the hairpin, and there is a move for Scott Dixon. He's into second place, trying to make his two-stop strategy work against the one-stoppers, and he's now into second, 5.6 seconds behind that man who we just looked at there, before we cut to Marco Andretti getting all wrong through the chicane. Dixon into second place, now chasing down Lotterer, and if Dixon can indeed close down that gap on Lotterer and make the move, Dixon surely is in pole position to win this Grand Prix.
And it was just a matter of time before Dixon does make his move on Lotterer. I think Lotterer will have to do all he can to keep Dixon behind him. Dixon's tyres will begin to drop off as he's closing in on him. As you can see, Jean-Luc Verne way down in the order in 17th place. He's not having a good start to his title defence, is he?
Well, Jean-Luc Verne last time out, he had an absolutely awful time in Taupo. He qualified down in 14th place and did not advance in the race. He finished 18th at the end of the New Zealand race. Not a good result for him or for Tom Butterworth, the team manager of the BAR team. It looked a lot more promising coming into this race. He qualified 7th for today's Adelaide race, which you would say, Tom, definitely a step in the right direction for the reigning champions. But after his spin into gravel earlier on, now running down in 17th place. But if we do get a bit more attrition, maybe he could claw back some points. But as it stands, Verne once again having a frustrating day.
Yeah, and he's still some way to go yet in this one. You can see Kevin Magnussen pulling alongside the Prost of Jaime Alström. You can see Montero into the barrier, and that's the end of the Portuguese driver's race, and nearly takes out the Onyx of Kazuki Nakajima with him. That's a very big shunt there for Thiago Montero.
And we're on the replay now. He just gets onto the curb, it unsettles car, and he spins straight into the inside barrier, very nearly collecting the traffic there with him. But Thiago Montero, he was having such a good race, running up in the points, could have scored on his debut, but an unfortunate incident there for Thiago Montero, and as his car is craned away, that is an end to his debut race here in Adelaide. What a shame that is for the Portuguese driver. He was doing so well up until that point, but as we've said time and time again, Tom, this is a circuit where if you push too hard, it will bite you back.
Yeah, and we saw a few other drivers, going over those curves heavily. Alguersuari and Calderon, and another driver went over there very, very heavily. Yeah, Montero just pushed very, very hard, too hard, to the point in which he spun the car around, upset the balance of the car, and he just gone straight into the barrier sideways. And yeah, a very nasty incident, but at least he's okay. He's not too badly hurt from the incident. And yeah, that's the end of Midland's day for Michael Gillespie. He's back to the drawing board for him.
Yeah, unfortunately, Paul di Resta, Thiago Montero's teammates, he retired on lap 1 as Lotterer is now in the pits for what should be his 1 and only pit stop. That releases this man, Scott Dixon, back into the lead of the Adelaide Grand Prix, and this is now his time to push, as Dixon was more or less with Andre Lotterer before the German came into the pits. So it's more or less a pit stop gap between them. And oh, Andretti has lost it. Andretti spins, but does well to keep it out of the barrier. He gets the car going again with a quick spin turn, and he's on his way again. Well held there for Marco Andretti, as Alex Albon is now showing us out of the Grand Prix from 9th place. And we're hopefully going to get a replay of it here. There is Alex Albon, and it's damage. It looks like damage. Yes, he's lost his front right tyre. So that's a bit of a strange way to do it, Tom. Because he would have thought that he would have maybe lost the other side of his car from where he was, going straight over a gravel trap, but he's ended up on the inside with his inside wheel gone. The replays didn't quite pick up what happened to him. But yeah, strange one there for Albon by the looks of it. I'm wondering what he did to lose that particular wheel on that particular corner.
I wonder if he's hit the curb on the outside and then which propelled the car to the inside and hit the pit wall, which caused Albon to lose the right front.
So that's one of the
yeah. So that's because we didn't see him go into the gravel, because we would normally pick it up when a driver does go into the gravel. We'd normally pick it up, wouldn't we, Topher? So that's my suggestion there. As you can see, Kazuki Nakajima alongside the Super Aguri of Robin Frines. It's going to be a move there from the Japanese driver on a Japanese car. So it's Nakajima moving ahead there on a track where his father, Satoru Nakajima, once did a blinder race.
We've got a moment there for Christensen. Sorry, Tom. Tom Christensen getting crossed up going into the final corner and doing very well to hold on to it. We've had a few drivers fall foul of that particular section of the circuit. They're pushing too hard coming into the final corner. Christensen doing a very good job to hold on to it there. And talking about Dixon earlier on, just to finish my point about that, Dixon effectively has a pit stop gap over Lotterer after the German came into the pit. So Dixon has to go and get the job done now if he's going to win this race. But Lotterer is on the fresher tyre, so Lotterer will have the advantage, and he's already closing in on the gap that Dixon has. Lotterer is 19.4 seconds off the lead at this moment in time. But don't forget, Dixon has one more pit stop to go himself, so it's going to turn the tables later on when Dixon comes in for his final pit stop, and then he'll be on the fresher tyres. This is becoming so intriguing from a strategic point of view, as Nico Hülkenberg pulls into the pits for what should be his one and only stop.
So Hülkenberg in play for potentially a podium. I want to go back to what I was saying about Nakajima, Topher.
Yes,
you remember his father's wet weather drive in 1989 for the Lotus?
Yes, brilliant drive.
Yeah, I know it's not wet conditions for this one, but it just, Nakajima's influence from his father's days in the Lotus in '89 will have given him somewhat of a boost in this race. As you can see, Jeff Gordon.
A little bit of a close moment there for Jeff Gordon as Nico Hülkenberg comes out of the pits. And Jeff Gordon, he's been absolutely stellar in this race so far. He started dead last by virtue of a grid drop from the previous race in Taupo. He's now up into 8th position. And Dave Goddard, the team manager of Forti Corsi, he went into season 1 with the intention of just going to have a bit of a laugh. And Brendan Hartley! Brendan Hartley has a transmission problem, but has also gone off. And there's a Lola stopped in front of him, Calderon.
He's been hit by the Lola of Tatiana Calderon.
I think you must be right there, Tommy. It appears that Hartley had a transmission issue there, so the gearbox is packing, and then Calderon has hit the back of him as Hartley has been trying to pull off to the side of the circuit. We didn't quite see all of what went on there. We haven't had any replays, so the stewards will need to have a proper look at that to see who was at fault. We'll bring a decision on that later on. But Brendan Hartley, the vice champion, who is looking like a contender for a podium in the early stages of this race, is now out, as is the Mastercard Lola of Tatiana Calderon, joining her teammate Domenico Di Silvestro on the sidelines. But not a good race so far for the Manor team. We had Andretti running up in the points earlier on as well, but he went for a spin through the gravel trap. He's now down in 13th place, which is going to be 12th as he passes the broken down car of Hartley. He's just done that now, so Andretti's up into 12th place as he pulls into the pit. So Andretti, I think, is also on a one-stop strategy, which could get him into points later on. We'll have to see how that pans out with the likes of Jean-Eric Verne and Jaime Alguersuari ahead of him. Now Lotterer is back up into 2nd place with all the pit stops having now panned out. 18.8 seconds behind Dixon. There's Robin Fraines going down the inside of Jeff Gordon. And what I was saying about the Forti Corsi team led by Dave Goddard, he went into season 1 with the intention of just going to have a bit of a laugh, going to aim to be the worst team, just in it for a bit of banter, a bit of fun. And well, he achieved that in season 1. Forti Corsi was the slowest car in the field, and they thus finished last. They had Taki Inoue and Jean-Denis Delatraz on the team that season. But going into season 2, Goddard has decided he's going to take it a bit more seriously this time. He's taken on the services of Mika Salo, who took 2 podiums for Ferrari back in 1999. Arguably should have won the German Grand Prix that year had he not surrendered it to Eddie Irvine, who was fighting for the championship that season. And then also taking on NASCAR legend Jeff Gordon, who is eligible for the Grand Prix World Series, as he has tested for the Williams Formula One team back in 2004, I believe it was. So Jeff Gordon, highly experienced and highly successful in America in NASCAR, now trying his hand at Formula One. And Tom, he's putting on a stellar performance coming from the back of the grid.
Indeed, 17 positions made from the back of the grid there for Jeff Gordon, on course for Dave Gollard's first points of the season for the 40 camp. He only picked up 9 points last year in the Grand Prix World Series. We're hoping to exceed that this season, most definitely, considering we've got this promotion and relegation system that's in play.
So if you're not aware of the promotion relegation system we have in place, this is new for Season 2. In Season 1, we only had the 13 teams competing. So 13 teams, 26 drivers. Such was the popularity of the Grand Prix World Series, we had to open up a second league, which basically means we have 26 teams. And how we're doing it from season to season, at the end of Season 2, the top 3 teams from League 2 will be promoted up to League 1 for Season 3. And then the bottom 3 teams from League 1 will be demoted to League 2. It's very much a football-style relegation promotion system that we've got in place now, so a lot more to play for. And as we said with Dave Goddard, he's taking it a bit more seriously this time, as he does not want to be demoted down to League 2 for Season 3. And we're still early days, it's only a second race, and Andretti having an issue there. He's pulled off to the side of the circuit. It's a double retirement for the Manor team. That looks to be mechanical. We haven't seen exactly what it was. We will get confirmation from the team at the end of the race. But a double DNF for Manor, not the way that Sam Hall will want to start his season, trying to chase after the BAR camp for the championship. And meanwhile, at the front, Lotterer was actually being held up by Marco Andretti before he pulled off. The gap is now 20.4 seconds. Lotterer closing in a little bit now to 20.3 now that he's cleared that traffic. But Marco Andretti not doing the BMS any favours at all. And as it stands, I believe it will be Advantage Dixon when he comes in for his final pit stop.
Nico Hulkenberg up into 5th place ahead of Tom Christensen. As you can see, Robin Freins trying to get round the right-hander. Not easy to get through there, but he's okay nevertheless. And Hulkenberg up into 5th place, chasing after Kevin Magnussen. Now, these two have history, don't they? Topher, with what they've done in the Formula One.
It was very well documented in the Drive to Survive series, the 3rd season of that coming out on the 19th of this month. We're all eagerly waiting for that to come out, covering the 2020 season this time around. And yeah, the rivalry between Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hulkenberg, not really the friendliest of rivalries, let's say. Multiple exchanges between those two, which we will not get into at the moment. I think we'd be here for quite a while if we got into that one, Tom.
Yeah, and some of it is rather industrial, let's say. So it's probably best not to mention too much of that.
I think that's a polite way of putting it.
Yeah. But back to the racing. But looking at Kazuki Nakajima, 7th place in the Onyx. He made that mistake earlier, didn't he? But he's managed to recover well back up there. We've got 12 cars running. Pedro De La Rosa, the last of the runners, in 12th, but at least he's still going, as is his teammate.
A moment there for Kevin Magnussen. Sorry, Tom. Magnussen off the road. It looks like he's kept out of the barriers. The AGS is pointing the wrong way. So we were saying about the rivalry between Magnussen and Hulkenberg. It looks like the Hulk has pressured Magnussen into a mistake there. He spin-turns the car out of the runoff area. He's now down into 10th place behind Jaime Alguersuari. And riding on board now with Andre Lotterer, he's now closed in another few tenths to Dixon. He's cleared that traffic, and now he is after this win. Lotterer, he took pole position for this race. There's Alguersuari getting crossed up into the hairpin, but he's able to keep on going. Lotterer, he's already taken one victory in his Grand Prix World Series career. He wants another. He's got the taste of victory. He's got the taste of the winner's champagne. He wants to know what that tastes like again. And another 2 tenths out of Dixon's lead in that last sector. The gap is now 19.5 seconds. It looks like it is going to be a straight fight between these two for victory. Dixon still has one pit stop to make later on in this race. He will drop behind Lotterer once he's made that pit stop, but will be on the fresher tyre, so he will have the advantage in terms of speed. Can he make it count when it matters?
Likely that Dixon's final set of tyres will pay dividends when he comes in for his last stop. Lotterer just has to do all he can. I mean, he's not under pressure from Sato behind, and he probably won't have too many back markers to get through either. So I think this is very much a two-way fight between Dixon and Lotterer for the race win. Lotterer already has one race win to his name from Marrakesh last year. Scott Dixon, despite picking up a pole position last year at the Vancouver race, is still yet to win a Grand Prix, as do the Simtek team. As you can see, Jaime Alguersuari running in 9th place as a result of Magnussen's spin. He's just less than 5 seconds behind the 40 of Jeff Gordon, and he's on course. What would be some points for the Cross team they could do with a points finish today, with both cars still in the running, as is Jean-Luc Vernfort of BAR. I mean, it's been another miserable day for the BAR team, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has indeed. And in the Retro Racing Managers League, all the team managers, we like to have a bit of banter with each other. Like, if they have a bit of a poor race, we'll, like, you know, have a bit of fun of each other. But, you know, it's all in good fun. We're not mean to each other. But, having said that, if Scott Dixon does indeed go on and wins this race, I don't think anyone is going to be too disheartened by that, because Scott Woodward, he was so unlucky in Season 1 of the Grand Prix World Series. He should have won races on more than one occasion, but there's always something that conspired against him, and he still hasn't been able to pick up a victory in this championship. So if Scott Dixon can go the distance and get the victory nailed on today, I think everyone's going to be happy with that result. I know that I will be. I mean, I'm a team manager myself. I've got the Super Aguri team, with Da Costa already out of the race and Robin Frings down in 7th place. But I'm not going to be too, you know, unhappy to see Simtek win a race here, because I think more than any other team on the grid, Tom, they deserve a Grand Prix victory.
Very much so. As you can see, a couple of drivers coming into the pits. Kazuki Nakajima is one of them. Robin Fines is the other, from 6th and 7th. That promotes Jeff Gordon up into 6th place. Jaime Alguersuari move up to 7th, and Kevin Magnussen will move up to 8th. So I'd expect to see Nakajima pull out in front of Vern, unless Vern can get onto the pace of Nakajima and Frines. As you can see, Nakajima and Frines have rejoined ahead of Vern. So,
and what a bit of a moment there with Vern, as Robin Frines comes out of the pits right in front of the reigning champion. Vern getting a bit flustered by that, by the looks of it. Frines popping out right in front of him. And Frines now with a tyre advantage will clear off from the BAR, but Vern not at all happy with that, with the Super Guri coming out right in front of him, getting it wrong through the chicane and lucky to keep it out of the barriers, but Vern down in 11th place. He wants to be up there fighting for the points.
Yeah, and you know, Vern trying to salvage something from this Adelaide Grand Prix, still yet to get a point on the board, despite finishing so far down last time out in Taupo. We had 21 finishes in the League One race in Taupo, which was more than expected. But today, so far, it's just going to be no more than 12. It'll be even less than that by the end of the race. We've still got 21 laps to go in this League One race. Scott Dixon leading by more than 17 seconds over Andre Lotterer, but he is due in for a final trip to the pits, and Lotterer will be in the lead by, I would say, around about 6 or 7 seconds when Dixon comes in for his last stop.
And your point, Tom, about the fact that we had 21 finishes in the League One race at Taupo, we're not going to get any more than 12 finishing this one, as you say. But that shows just how much of a car breaker this circuit really is. We've said it time and time again over the course of this broadcast, but it really is. It's really tough on the drivers and the cars. We've had multiple gearbox issues across both races, and we've had the track itself biting back, drivers trying to ride the curves a bit too hard, and then being put into a spin. The most dramatic of those we saw coming from Thiago Monteiro on his debut, riding across the curves way too hard and being thrown to the inside barrier, completely destroying the side of his Midland. And yeah, it's one of those circuits where it can bite back. We had really good reliability last time out in Taupo, and this time round in the League 2 race, we only had 5 finishes. We had 6 classified, with Alexander Rossi just completing enough of the race to be classified for points. And then this time in the League 1 race, we've got 12 people running at the moment, and we could have a few more retirements yet. We've now got Jeff Gordon in the pit as well. The 2 stoppers are now starting to come in. We've had Robin Frames and I think it was Tom Christensen coming in earlier. Right, here's Scott Dixon coming into the pits, Tom. This is the important pit stop here for Simtek.
Yeah, this needs to be a textbook stop. There's no one else in the pits at the same time as Dixon, so he shouldn't lose any time waiting for any drivers coming in and out. So you can see Lotta will go through into the lead in the BMS Scuderia Italia.
And there is Dixon coming out of the pits behind him. There will be a gap of around about 6 seconds. I think you're right on that, Tom. But Dixon, on the fresher tyres, he's now got to make it count. Lotterer was making his fresher tyres count earlier on after his one and only pit stop. And we're waiting for the sector times to update so we can see the gap. Dixon is not 4/10 of a second behind Lotterer. That's as it was as they crossed the start-finish line. So Lotterer has now gone through into the next sector. We're waiting on Dixon. It's 5.8 seconds again. So, Tom, you were pretty much spot on with your prediction. About 6 seconds gap between Lotterer and Dixon. Dixon now has to fly if he wants to get this race victory.
Yeah, and this is very much Dixon's race to lose, really, with him on the much fresher rubber than Lotterer. Jean-Eric Verne coming into the pits, as is Kevin Magnussen. That should promote Pedro De La Rosa up into 10th place. I don't know if De La Rosa will be pitting again, but we'll find out soon enough anyway.
Well, De La Rosa, I think he might have to get a bit lucky to get any points here. He's down in last. If he does have to pit again, then it will drop him way back behind Jean-Eric Verne. He's currently just ahead of him. And, Frain's going across the curb there. And he's gone for a half spin in the Super Guri. It looks like he's kept it out of the barriers. Robin Frain's not really making the best job of that corner there in the Super Guri. We ride on board with him for the replay. And yeah, just simply pushed too hard. Got onto the curbs. Goes for the half spin. And he will be able to continue. He's kept it out of the barriers. And he's in 9th place, I believe. He's got a bit of a gap over Kevin Magnussen in the AGS, but that's not really how you want to go about driving this circuit.
No, definitely not. And bad news for Lotterer is that he's stuck behind Jean-Eric Verne as Verne was coming out of the pits. But I think the good news for Lotterer is that Verne will be on much fresher tyres. So Verne should be able to pull away from the BMS Scuderia Italia.
Well, Verne won't want to be getting in the way of Lotterer. They are really good friends, actually, from when they were teammates at DS Techeetah in Formula E. Those two incredibly close, really good friends. There they both are. Lotterer in the lead of this race, Verne ahead of him, and Verne might well pull away on the fresher tyres, but if he doesn't, he won't want to stick around in front of Lotterer too much. If anyone except Verne is going to win this race, I think Verne would want it to be Lotterer. Such is their brotherhood that they have with each other. But Dixon is really closing in the gap here. He's already almost halved the gap coming out of the pits. It's down to 3.8 seconds. Dixon really making the most of this strategy and making the most of the fresher tyres. It's down to 3.1 and he sets the fastest lap on the way. He is pushing so hard here, Tom.
Yep, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if he kept that fastest up by the end of the race. Andre Lotterer, who had started the race on pole position, under pressure to keep hold of the lead, but at least he'll keep hold of second place if Dixon does get by him, because I don't think Sartre will have enough time to close down on Andre.
And Andre making a slight mistake there. I think he might be feeling the pressure. The gap's now down to 1.8. Dixon is absolutely flying here. Lotterer made a little bit of a mistake over the curbs and got the tyres locked up. Verne has pulled away from Lotterer. He's making his own strategy work here with the fresher tyres. So this is now a straightforward fight between Lotterer and Dixon. There's no excuses of traffic between those two. And Dixon is reeling in the BMS Scuderia. It's now down to 1.4 seconds. Sato's also been closing in on Lotterer as well. There's 12 seconds there. Not really close enough for Sato to be able to close down on the lead battle. We're now looking at Tom Christensen and Kazuki Nakajima. And Christensen's gone across the curbs there. He's done what Frains did a couple of laps ago, and he has hit the barrier. I don't know if he's got damage or not. He's stuck up against the tyre walls and might well be a retirement for the Minardi. Christensen was running a good race. I know he's backing it onto the circuits again. He stopped just as he's got back onto the racing line, so I don't think there'll be too much drama. He's waited for Kevin Magnussen to go through, and he's now stuck on the racing line. And oh my goodness! Pedro De La Rosa has had to go around Christensen, and Christensen not really doing the Spaniard any favours there. I wouldn't be surprised to see Christensen pick up a penalty for that. And Jean-Eric Verne is out of this race from 12th place. Verne has retired. We haven't seen what that was for. it could have been mechanical, but the cameras have been focusing on Tom Christensen, forcing Pedro De La Rosa off the racing line. And I think I see a penalty incoming for Tom Christensen for that.
Yeah, that was really dangerous from him. And whilst we've been saying that, Scott Dixon's is now through into the lead ahead of Andre Lotterer. I think that's because, looking at the gap, I think Lotterer had to take evasive action because of Christensen. So I can imagine that Christensen will have a book thrown at him for what he's done there.
It would not surprise me at all to see Christensen come under investigation for that. But as you say, Tom, Scott Dixon off camera has gone through into the lead and is already well ahead of Andre Lotterer. And now Sato's off. Takuma Sato has gone off the track from 3rd place. He's in the gravel trap facing the wrong way, doing what Marco Andretti did earlier. He's back on the circuit and is turning it around, and all just in front of Jaime Alguersuari there. But Sato keeps hold of 4th place, and it doesn't look like he's got any damage to me. So Sato down into 4th place, just ahead of Alguersuari. Here is your new race leader, Scott Dixon, 5.2 seconds ahead of Lotterer. I mean, Tom, we expected Dixon to be faster than Lotterer on fresh tyres, but this is absolutely ridiculous, the speed that Scott Dixon is putting in.
It's incredible, isn't it? And Scott Dixon continues to pull away from Lotterer. I think with Sato's misdemeanour with the...
Oh, there's a moment there for Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg has done what Montero did. He spun into the barrier, and that looks like Hulkenberg has crashed out of a podium place. Now, Hulkenberg, he picked up a few podiums in Season 1, but was never quite able to get onto the top step. It looked like... Oh, we've got another one off. I think that's Alguersuari going off behind Sato. Alguersuari doing exactly what Hulkenberg did. And he's now slow on the main straight. And he's now stopped. And Alguersuari also out of this race. It's all kicking off here in Adelaide. We've had another couple of retirements within a few seconds of each other. Hulkenberg spins into a barrier, and Alguersuari also spins in the same place, almost out of sympathy.
It's so bizarre. That curve really does take its toll on the drivers, and that's a blessing for Takuma Sato with that spin he's made. He managed to keep it going. Had he made that spin anywhere else, that would have been a certain retirement like with Hulkenberg and Alguersuari. So Sato back up into 3rd place, and his teammate Kazuki Nakajima in 4th, and Jeff Gordon in 5th place in the 40. What a drive he's had. He's one of the drivers of the day, without a doubt.
Dave Goddard in the comments asking, what's Jeff Gordon doing up there? Well, Jeff Gordon is Dave Goddard's driver. And we're kind of asking ourselves the same question here, Dave. In the early parts of the races, before the attrition kicked in, he was having a mega race going up from last on the grid up into the points. We now only have 9 runners left in the League 1 Adelaide Grand Prix. Gordon is running 5th. Not actually that far off of Kazuki Nakajima. He's 6.2 seconds behind the Japanese. And we're now riding on board with Sato, who has effectively got away with that spin earlier on because he lost the position to Nico Hulkenberg. But then he went and span out of the race himself. Sato's now back into 3rd. He definitely won't be contending for the victory now. He can still take a podium out of this, and it's going to be a good day of points for the Onyx team and Ryan Ferris. Sato in 3rd and Nakajima in 4th, and Onyx on for one of their best results ever in a Grand Prix World Series. There is Pedro De La Rosa being lapped by racer Scott Dixon. Is De La Rosa trying to come back on Dixon? Yes, he is. De La Rosa trying to unlap himself. That's not really on from the Spaniard. He's been lapped by the race leader. Really, he should be staying behind the Simtek, but De La Rosa feeling like he can go faster. And Dixon trying to get past again. This is not going to do the Simtek any favour. Scott Woodward is going to have his heart in his mouth at this. Dixon gets back through past De La Rosa. Christensen is behind the duo as well. It looks like Dixon has now properly cleared De La Rosa. Scott Woodward, I imagine, will have a few things to say about De La Rosa there.
Yeah, he'll most definitely be having words with me about that. But, De La Rosa, he had the slipstream on the straight, and to be fair, De La Rosa's in the battle with Tom Christensen. You can see Christensen's right behind De La Rosa, so that's probably why De La Rosa tried to get back ahead of Dixon to pull away from the Simtek driver, but was not able to be quick enough to pull away. But you can see Christensen's right behind the Spaniard in the battle for 8th.
And it has just been confirmed by race control that Tom Christensen is under investigation. He's running in 9th place at the moment. He's still in this Grand Prix. He is under investigation for when he went off earlier on and came back onto the racing line forcing De La Rosa off the circuit. De La Rosa has been able to continue himself and is in front of Christensen, but I imagine that Christensen is going to have the rule book thrown at him for that one. When we have news of a penalty or no further action or whatever for Christensen, we will let you know, but the Dane is under investigation.
Yeah, I'm not at all surprised by that, and there's all sorts of penalties that can be dished out to the drivers, you know, from time penalties to race bans. You know, depending on the severity of the offence, you know, the stewards can take action on the incidents that happen during the races post the event.
Any updates that we do have, we will keep everyone informed. We let all of our team managers know any decisions that are made away from the cameras. So if a decision has not come through by the end of this race, we will inform all of the managers of any decisions and penalties later on. We don't leave anyone else. And oh, Christensen is going for a spin there. He's kept it out of the barrier. It's yet another adventure there for the Dane, Mr. Le Mans himself. Came into the world of Formula 1 in the Grand Prix World Series hoping to get what would have finally been his big break in Formula 1. And yeah, he's having a bit of a meal of it here at the moment. He's been off multiple times in this race, but is still going. He's in 9th place and on course for points. But will he be able to keep those points should he get to the end of the race? We will have to wait and see on that one. We are riding on board with Scott Dixon. He has a lead of 10 seconds now to Lotterer. So he has a comfortable gap in his pockets. All he needs to do now is just keep it on the track, get to the end, bring home a first Grand Prix victory for himself and for Simtech.
Scott Woodward will be keeping his fingers crossed that his Simtech car will make it to the end. 10 laps to go for Scott Dixon. See that? That's the mix of...
Oh, a bit of a moment there for Dixon. Sorry, Tom. A bit of a moment there for Dixon. I was just saying, Scott, keep it calm. Get to the end. I know Dixon's ridden the curb and he's going off. So he kept out the wall. I think he has just kept out of the wall. And oh, Scott Woodward, what is your heart rate at the moment? Dixon very nearly throwing away a victory. He's kept it out of the barrier. He's still going. And I think after that, Tom, he probably will calm it down a bit and just make sure that he gets to the end of this Grand Prix. He has a gap of 9.9 seconds over Lotterer. That will come down through the splits, which it has. It's now 6.2 seconds. Dixon, oh, I so nearly had a heart attack watching that, Tom.
Yeah, and it had my heart going there. And you know, Scott, just keep the car on the track. Don't do what Alex Rossi did in the E2 race earlier when he just binned it in the closing stages, which handed victory to... I've actually forgotten who actually won the League 2 race. There was so much going on.
The League 2 race was won by Adrian Suttil in the end. Only 5 finishes in that race. Suttil was one of only 5 drivers to go the distance and keep their car on the track in what was an incredible League 2 race.
Yeah, that was... yeah, just don't do what Alexander Rossi did by binning it into the barrier. With only so many laps to go.
Or indeed what Danny Kvyat did in the non-championship Vancouver Grand Prix. He was dominating that event before he put the rear end of his Pacific into the barriers. Not really a good day for the Russian there. And De La Rosa getting it all wrong across the curbs there. And beautifully held by the Spaniard there. Went for a spin across the curbs, coming onto the back straight. Got the car pointed the right way again, and quite nonchalantly, he's off and running again.
You know, De La Rosa with a nice pirouette there. You know, if you're going to finish the race, do a nice pirouette. As long as you don't come off. So.
Finish it in style, Tom. Finish it in style.
Yes.
Anyway, we have about 8 laps to go here in Adelaide. Scott Dixon has a gap of 7.8 seconds ahead of Andre Lotterer. Takuma Sato leads an Onyx 3-4. Nakajima running in 4th place. Jeff Gordon from last on the grid up into 5th place. Jeff Gordon's basically saying, grid penalty? What grid penalty? He's on for really good points here. And if he finishes in 5th, he will receive 10 World Championship points, which after 2 rounds will break 40 Corsi's record from Season 1. Dave Goddard came in Season 2 taking it more seriously. He wanted to get himself further up the grid. And so far, Dave, good job. You've got Jeff Gordon in 5th place and you're on to surpass your points tally from Season 1. A fantastic run so far from Jeff Gordon. And what has turned out to be quite an inspired signing of the NASCAR legend.
Yeah, and Jeff Gordon will be relishing the opportunity of being given his chance by Dave Goddard to race in the championship and, to bring home 5th place, which would be by far the team's best result in the Grand Prix World Series. That would give them 10 points. So they've scored more points in one race in this season of the Grand Prix World Series than they have done in the entire season 1.
And it has just been announced by Race Control. Tom Christensen, De La Rosa going for a spin there. Another trip across the gravel there for the Spaniards. He's kept the engine running by the looks of it. He's trying to get out of the gravel trap. He's in 9th place now. Christensen has gone through. And yep, he's back onto the circuit and De La Rosa goes through. But speaking of Tom Christensen, it has just been confirmed by Race Control. Tom Christensen will start the Sepang Grand Prix from the back of the grid. And that is for the instance where he came back onto the racing line and forced Pedro De La Rosa off the circuit into the barriers. The team can appeal that decision if they so wish, but as it stands, Tom Christensen is going to start Sepang from the back of the grid for that incident.
Yeah, and we had Jean-Eric Verne who retired in that melee as well because he was right behind De La Rosa when they were going past Christensen. So the fact they took Verne out, I'm assuming they took Verne out because I can't think of another way why Verne would have retired at that same point. It'd be a miracle if he just retired with mechanical issues whilst Christensen was having his own maladies. But yeah, I can't really complain about the decision to relegate Christensen to the back of the grid no matter what happens in qualifying for Sepang. As you can see, Andre Lotterer in 2nd place. He would seem to be very happy with it. I know he will have wanted the victory, but I'm pretty sure with what's happened throughout today, he'll have most definitely taken a 2nd place at the beginning of it.
In 2nd place is still a fantastic result in the Retro Racing Managers League. Andre Lotterer does have the bonus points for pole position in his pockets already. 2nd place will give him 18 points towards his championship total. And that will add to his points tally from Tabo of 1. So after this, Lotterer should be on 20 points, 1 point for pole and 18 points for 2nd place. We still have 5 laps to go here, and we've completed lap 54 now, Tom. So all of these 9 drivers, regardless of whether they now get to the end, they will be classified as points finishers. So De La Rosa in 9th place is set to pick up 2 points, unless he further advances up the order. But as it stands, all finishers will now receive points.
Yeah, well, at least it's more than we had in the League 2 race, so there were 5 finishers in that. And now De La Rosa, I don't think he's going to have enough time to catch back up to Christensen again, is he? It looks as though it's pretty much set in stone as far as the race order is concerned, although the best battle on track is between the Onyx drivers. Sato only 1.4 seconds ahead of Kazuki Nakajima. There you are, there they are in your picture.
Yeah, we have just cut to that battle. Looks like Nakajima has been closing in on Takuma Sato. Sato was absolutely stellar when he joined the series in Season 1. He picked up a couple of pole positions straight away, really, but then had a string of retirements. He just didn't have the luck on his side. He was incredibly quick, but just couldn't get the results, and famously dropped out of the lead of the Fuji Grand Prix, his home event. And here, it now looks like he's on course for what would be a well-deserved podium. But at the same time, he's got his rookie teammate, Kazuki Nakajima, breathing down his neck. Nakajima's not going to be thinking team game. He just wants to go and get on the podium. Here is Tom Christensen unlapping himself from Andre Lotterer. Lotterer is not going to enjoy that one bit. Lotterer, I think, maybe playing that a bit wise there, actually. Maybe just letting Christensen go so he doesn't have to deal with him in a bit of a clumsier place. Lotterer, I think, now has just consigned himself to 2nd place and allowing Christensen to go. Christensen is a lap down still on Scott Dixon in 8th place. He's set for 4 championship points here. And there's a gap now of 15 seconds. So barring any late attritional issues, any late mechanical issues, Scott Dixon looks set for victory here.
Yes, and I want to have a look at this battle here between Sato and Nakajima. 0.6 of a second they went through the 2nd sector now. So Nakajima very much in play for a podium. Jeff Gordon's too far behind. You can see Robin Fines locking up there into the hairpin. He's 5 seconds in front of Kevin Magnussen in 7th.
And friends, he had a half spin earlier on in the race through the corner coming onto the back straight. But since then, he's been pretty quiet, actually. He's just gone about his business. He's calmed down his driving, just making sure he gets to the end. And as it stands, he's set to be rewarded with 8 championship points for himself and the Super Aguri team. And looking at the gap between Sato and Nakajima, we're riding on board with Sato at the moment. It is half a second, so we're looking forward from Sato. But Nakajima's right there behind him. I'd rather see the exterior shots from this. I want to see whether Nakajima can get a run on his teammate here. It's now 3/10 the gap, so Nakajima will be looking to make a move up the inside of the hairpin on this lap, I imagine. We're looking at Kevin Magnussen having a bit of a moment across the curves there. He's still running in 7th place. That will be 6 championship points for himself and for AGS. And Nakajima has made the move past Sato. We're only a handful of laps from the end of this race. But looking at the graphic, Kazuki Nakajima is into 3rd place, and he has effectively stolen a podium away from his more experienced teammate. Sato won't be enjoying that one bit. He wants to beat his teammate before he beats anyone else. But Nakajima, on the 3rd to last lap, is now set for a podium in only his 2nd Grand Prix event. And oh, it's Lotterer. Lotterer is going off. Lotterer is back in the current barrier. Oh, he's done well to keep it out of the barriers there. Lotterer continues in 2nd place. He doesn't need to push. Andre, just keep it on the track. His 2nd place is yours for the taking there. Lotterer getting it all wrong. Only a handful of laps from the end. And Tom, maybe we do still have some late drama in this race.
I don't think I will see too much. I mean, Lotterer just losing his concentration for a moment there.
Oh, there's Sato going on. Sato's just lost 3rd place to his teammate, and he's now span into the barrier. Is there going to be a time? He's trying to back out of it. Gordon's gone through into 4th place. Sato's not moving anywhere. I imagine Fraines is going to go through as well. And yeah, Fraines and Magnussen have both gone through. So Sato down 7th. Oh, he's backed into the barrier there. I think he's been very lucky to get away without any damage there. So no pressure is now on Kazuki Nakajima, the rookie with Onyx, who in only his 2nd Grand Prix World Series appearance is now set for a maiden podium. We are now on the penultimate lap. It's lap 59 out of 60. Dixon has a lead of 22.8 seconds. Scott Woodwist down in the paddock. His foot is twitching away. He hasn't got any nails left to bite. He's on course for his first ever Grand Prix World Series victory. So there is Scott Dixon. He's only a lap and a sector away from the checkered flag in what I think will be a very popular victory down in the paddock. Not many people would deny Scott Woodwist a victory in the Grand Prix World Series. He deserved one all the way through Season 1. He hasn't had the luck, he hasn't had the results. Scott Dixon now starts the final lap. He's 1 lap away from victory here in Adelaide. And Scott Woodwist, he might well now take his first Grand Prix World Series victory.
It's been a stellar performance from Dixon. I don't think you can say he doesn't deserve it. He absolutely deserved it all day long. Lotterer put in a great drive as well. I know he's had a few spins in the race, but he kept the car out of trouble, really. And he's on course for a 2nd place finish. A great result for the BM Scuderia Teller team, and I think that's going to be their best result as well.
I think it will be, yes. Season 1, they were led by Adam Weller, as Sato goes wide there. He's kept it going, though. Adam Weller was at the helm of BMS Scuderia Italia in Season 1. Got a few points finishes here and there, but not really much to write home about. For this season, the team has been taken over by Emma Featherstone, and already she has a pole position to her name and is about to get to her first podium in a Grand Prix World Series at the hands of Andre Lotterer. Here is Scott Dixon, who is now in the final sector. Scott Woodwist, you can stand up and enjoy this one. This has been a long time coming. Scott Dixon turns the final corner, gets a power down, and it has finally happened for the Simtech team. Scott Dixon wins the Adelaide Grand Prix. A fantastic result there for Scott Dixon, for Scott Woodwist, and the whole Simtech team. They've finally broken their duck in the Grand Prix World Series. Andre Lotterer is going to come home, converting pole into 2nd place, and Kazuki Nakajima depriving Takuma Sato of the final podium spot near the end. And Jeff Gordon is going to finish in 4th place from the back of the grid. I think Jeff Gordon has to be my driver of the day, Tom. He started last by virtue of a grid penalty from Taupo, and he's finished 6.1 seconds away from a podium.
Superb performance for him, and for 40 it was a stellar performance from Jeff Gordon. You can't really complain. He made no mistakes from start to finish. And, Kazuki Nakajima, what a drive. From 10th to 3rd, he didn't have a problem throughout the race as far as I remember. But yeah, Dixon was absolutely outstanding. And if that really kickstarts his charge for the championship, then he could be one of the contenders for it. Considering the likes of Verne, Kobayashi, De La Rosa and co, who have struggled again today, he was absolutely phenomenal.
That has been a long time coming for Scott Woodward and the team. So to confirm, Scott Dixon wins the Adelaide Grand Prix ahead of Andre Lotterer and Kazuki Nakajima for his maiden podium in the Grand Prix World Series. Jeff Gordon, 26th to 4th. What a result for him. Robin Fraines in 5th ahead of Kevin Magnussen, and Takuma Sato spinning out of a podium place in 7th. Christensen and De La Rosa were a lap down, and then your retirees, Alguersuari, Hulkenberg, Verne, Andretti, Hartley, Calderon, Albon, Montero, Di Silvestro, Fittipaldi, Kobayashi, Verstappen, Buemi, Di Resta, Salo, and then Whincup and Da Costa out on the first corner. A lot of retirements, a lot of attrition again there in that race, but I don't think anyone can complain too much about the result, can they, Tom?
No, and I think that moves Lotterer into the lead of the championship now. He will be on 27 points to Kobayashi on 25, I believe. Buemi will be on 18. Da Costa stays on 15, and Sato, with his 7th place finish, he would move on to 18 points. But it's a very, very tight championship as far as we know, Topher, and we've got a long way to go yet in this championship.
And just to confirm as well, the fastest lap going to Scott Dixon there. So almost the perfect weekend there for the Kiwi, just missing out on pole position. Andre Lotterer actually took pole position away by 13 thousandths of a second. So that was the difference between Scott Dixon getting a perfect weekend. But he can still be happy with a race win there. Scott Woodward finally getting his first Grand Prix World Series victory. He's celebrating down there in the paddock. And I think there's going to be a lot of drinks down there in the Simtech garage tonight, Tom.
You would think so, wouldn't you? I think Scott Woodward knows how to party. He seems like the party man himself. But he won't want to get too drunk, as they will be making the flight to Malaysia soon enough.
Yes, Malaysia will be the next round of the Grand Prix World Series. We're heading to the Sepang circuit, a very popular choice with our team managers. They weren't really happy when the circuit dropped off the real-life Formula 1 calendar, so we decided to bring it back in the Grand Prix World Series. There's a lot to look forward to. It's a fantastic circuit, plenty of overtaking opportunities, and an ever-present threat of rain. We could be in for a dry race, but of course, Malaysia, being in the monsoon season, we could see a bit of a wet one. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But for now, thank you very much all for tuning in. Those are two fantastic races. Attritional, yes, but at the same time, massively exciting. My name is Topher Smith. Thank you very much to Tom Kent alongside me in the commentary box. We will see you next time in Sepang. Thank you for tuning in.